Did we do it? Turning the fan off. Sorry about that. Turn the fan off. Ads are not guaranteed to appear. Oh, okay. They're letting me know. I got a new button. I can insert an ad. I have no idea what that's about. What? Let's do it. Click on the button. Ad inserted. Okay, sorry. Sorry if that messed anything up. What a journey, guys. What a journey. So, for those of you who don't know, I got a strike. The last live video that I did gave me a strike on the channel. I appealed it immediately. Hey, Oddity, how you doing? And it got overturned, thankfully. It was a strike for... they said that I was calling for violence or advocating violence, right? Which is obviously false. Right? It's obviously false. I always say that we need to be moving forward with peaceful intentions and with peaceful policies and plans. I've always said that. I've always advocated that. And the algorithm, I suppose, picked up something, because we talk about violence a lot on this channel, right? We talk about the societal violence that's occurring. We talk about what's happening in the society, and in fact are a bit sympathetic to those who reach for violence, given the intensity and the ridiculousness of what is happening, especially what with Roe v. Wade and all of this. So the decision was overturned immediately. Doesn't change the fact that it was an emotional roller coaster for me personally. Doesn't change the fact that it was like very, very absurd and difficult. And then on a personal note, like, these glasses are murdering me, guys. Like, they're murdering me. My eyes are constantly in pain. I've got a headache constantly. I'm tired all the time. So I'm really looking forward to this new pair of glasses coming in. Really looking forward to these new glasses coming in and getting that done. That's gonna be nice. That's gonna be nice. So we're back. Ligandese, good to see you, bud. Nova Scotia, DM, good to see you guys. Eric, good to see you. And Emily, good to see you all. So glad that you're all here. Holy cow, man. What a time. What a time to be alive. So we're organizing a protest August 1st. August 1st, if you can make it. Bloor and Bedford, that's here in Toronto. If you can make it, if you can bring friends, please do. Let the world know. Let everybody know. Let everything... Let the bells ring, right? Let all of that happen. We gotta fight back. We gotta be doing something. Well, thank you, DM. I appreciate that, bud. I really do. Because I admit it, guys. Like, I'm feeling... Whew. I'm feeling it these days, man. I'm feeling it these days. The Roe v. Wade decision is hopefully... And we'll see, hopefully, but I shouldn't say hopefully, but it's one of these moments where I think lots and lots of people are starting to recognize and realize that the system is not working. The system is not functioning. It isn't actually happening. It's not actually responding rationally. The people who are against, like, abortion and abortion rights have a childish view of the world. There's no other way to describe it, right? To them, abortion equals murder. And that's a black and white, firm position that a child would have, right? That it's, hey, Seraphim, how you doing? Like, abortion equals murder, right? It's this extraordinarily childish view of how abortion actually works and what it's actually used for, right? Pregnancy is a very, very dangerous process where abortion can oftentimes be the only choice to save the life of and the health of the woman. The idea that these children have of abortion is that it's like loose 20-year-olds going and getting knocked up and then going down to Planned Parenthood and getting an abortion and then going back out and going and getting knocked up again. This extremely childish view that, of course, children would have. Instead, what it actually is a major health concern that every woman needs to have available to her. And this isn't even bringing in, like, the idea that women can be forced to have sex, right? That's not even entering the conversation at all. But on just, like, an extraordinarily basic, like, rudimentary, this is a health concern, and what's being done is fundamentalist Christians are enforcing their childish perspective into a conversation where it doesn't exist, right? That's why America is turning into a theocracy, because they are now making laws and rules not based on reason or rational thinking or anything like this, but based explicitly on their religious perspective. That's what's happened, and people are beginning to understand it. My perspective, of course, is that America has always been a death cult. Capitalism is a death cult by its definition. It can't exist outside of an ideological framework. It doesn't exist as a natural sort of phenomenon or a force. It is enforced through violence explicitly. It is an ideology exclusively. And it makes sense that a death cult ideology would absorb or be absorbed by other religious or theocratic perspectives. That as the high content, what's going on there? That Christianity, at least the veneer of Christianity, is merging with the capitalist death cult. And the most childish possible iterations of Christianity are manifesting into the public space. Like the idea that abortion is murder. It's like it's about as childish as you can get. And it's like saying flour and sugar is a cake. It's pretty much the same thing. And the question of, well, when do you make that decision? Like, where's the line, right? Well, that would be up to the woman, wouldn't it? Right? If you want to be an adult and you actually believe in the individual and you believe in freedom, like these frauds pretend to, then you want to empower the individual woman, right? You want to empower the individual woman. You want to give her the freedom to make the decision for herself. That's what you want to do. It's a big decision that these Christian fascists have nothing to do with. And people are beginning to see it, and they're beginning to realize that the fraudulent nature of their system is not going to protect them. That it's going to strip them of these kinds of rights. Was anti-abortion ever a thing in the Christianity of Jesus? Look, the Christianity has never actually spoken about the issue. Seriously. Like, in the time of Christ, and this you can actually see more in Islam, right? That Islam is, like, the Islamists, the Muslims, they consider Islam to be a new iteration of Christianity, of the Abrahamic faith, a tradition. That it starts with Judaism, it moves to Christianity, and then it moves to Islam. That's how the Muslims view it. And it's explicitly dealt with in and it is actually explicitly dealt with in the Old Testament, and it's dealt with as a health concern, because that's what it is. It's a health concern first and foremost. And these fraudulent Christian fascists like to pretend as though the life of the fetus matters more than the life of the woman, because in their view that's actually true, because the fetus might be a man. And that's what it's actually about. That's what this whole thing is actually about. Okay? It's about ensuring that white women are forced to have as many babies as they can, to create as many white men as they can, so that the white military can continue its path of white supremacy. That's what this is. Black and white. It's not a debate. Like, it's not a debate, right? That the white supremacist power structure wants more white men. That's what they want. 60% of abortions are committed by white women. Tinker. Right? 60% of abortions are committed by white women. Like, this is a white supremacist issue exclusively. There's no other position to take. That's the reason why this legislation is happening. That's the reason why it's doing. And what they're doing is they're selling out their own faith, Christianity, in order to justify their white supremacy. That's precisely what they're doing. Because any sane, rational, adult person that's capable of using their brain for 5 minutes would see that this is a health concern, exclusively. And if you want to turn it into a moral concern, and if you want it to be of a moral consideration, well, then the state has no business making that decision on behalf of the individual. And it is as simple as that. The state has no business making moral decisions on behalf of the individual if it is indeed, in your view, a moral consideration. Yeah, technically marriage loyalty is higher than a fetus according to the Bible. Yeah. Like, this idea that we need to force women to kill themselves having children, it's a very white supremacist, state-based issue. That's what it is. Yeah, fetus souls go to heaven. Yeah. I'm now on social assistance, says Eric. Now I'm only going to get $1,044 a month to live. Yep. That's a loss of $400 income I used to get from EI. Yep. Welcome to the failed system, Eric. Good luck, bud. Today I've been extremely depressed and frustrated because of my COVID situation. As for Roe v. Wade, we knew this was coming when Trump cramped the Supreme Court with conservatives. Yeah. Well, and like, the Democrats are the real, like, the Republicans have never bullshitted anybody about it. Like, that's the thing, is that they're the ones that have been walking around wagging their dick around being like, this is what we're going to do, right? The Democrats have had all the opportunity in the world to do something about this. All the opportunity in the world, and they've done nothing. The idea that anyone is actually seriously supporting this party, being like, yeah, it's girl boss Hillary or any of this shit, like, that's the real joke, right? Like, I understand why somebody would want to be malicious and cruel and fill the world with suffering for others. Like, that makes a type of sense. What the Democrats are doing, this sort of faux, I feel your pain bullshit, right? You've got to be a gullible rube at this stage to believe that this party actually gives a shit about anybody, right? In my view, the Democrats are worse than the Republicans, because at least the Republicans are being straight about it. Like, they're childish, obviously, right? And they're mean and they're cruel, obviously. But at least they're saying, like, yeah, abortion is murder, we're going to ban it. And they're saying it, and they're doing what they said they were going to do. They're not bullshitting anybody. Whereas the Democrats, like, lie to you completely. They're just complete frauds and grifters. They're not interested in helping you, like, at all. They're just interested in convincing you that they're going to help you so that you'll vote for them, right? And then what's their response when you actually call them out? Well, what are you going to do, vote for Trump? Like, these people are worse than the Republicans, in my view. They're worse in big and significant ways. Some good news, Halifax City Council calls for a national basic income. Yeah, city councils have been calling for basic incomes and stuff for a long time now, dude. The mayor of Calgary did, the mayor of Edmonton did, right? Like, it's not gonna change anything. The Liberals respond to the oligarchy exclusively. Yep. Halifax Regional Council voted 15-2 to call on the government of Canada to implement a guaranteed livable basic income. Yeah, the Liberals don't care. Like, they genuinely do not care. Like, they're not going to just do that because they want to, out of the kindness of their heart, right? They work for an oligarchy exclusively. Like, the system has failed. This kind of stuff doesn't even move the meter. It doesn't even move the bar. Right? It just makes the people of Halifax and makes people feel good about themselves for getting the city council to actually say something about it. But the Liberals aren't going to do anything about it. The Conservatives aren't going to do anything about it. And the NDP aren't going to do anything about it. Right? Why? Because they work for an oligarchy. Exclusively. Until their houses are surrounded and until we're doing stuff to upset them, they're just going to continue doing business as usual. The Halifax City Council voted to debate basic income, can be found on YouTube. Fantastic. Under capitalism, women should be... Under capitalism, women should have the power to terminate at any age. Well, as long as they're not Americans, like if you send military into another person's country, you can kill whoever you want. Right? I guess that's kind of like that. Rhetorical statement. Can I consent to donating blood, or is it mandatory that other persons are entitled to my blood for survival? No. Why are wombs any different? Because your blood doesn't create white men. That's why. Which is what they want. They want as many white men as they can get their hands on. And if you're not a white man, then they want a white woman to make more white men. That's 100% what this is about. John, if you're selling I'm a Simp for John t-shirts... I should make a t-shirt. It'd be good to make a t-shirt with this Canadian this symbol. I should do it. Screw them all. Yep. I'm with you, Cam. Alright, let's get into the news of the day. Get rid of this. Food prices could rise as much as 15% over the summer. Like, we all know that prices are getting absolutely ridiculous. I've got article after article. Nearly 7 in 10 drivers worry they can't afford gas as prices soar, right? Like, we are going into like a terminal plunge at this point. There's just going to be an enormous moment. Just an absolute enormous moment where huge sections of the populace are not going to be able to participate in any kind of meaningful economic pursuit. Right? Like, this is what kills economies. If people can't afford to buy stuff, if nobody can actually afford to buy gas, if nobody can afford to buy food, if nobody can afford to buy goods, you don't have an economy anymore. Right? And how is the oligarchy responding? By extracting as much wealth as they can and then abandoning us. That's exactly how they're responding. It's also to ensure there are more BIPOC prisoners. Yep, for the prison industrial complex. Exactly, right? Exactly. And also, like, the state is desperately worried about come on, I had it right in front of me. Yeah. Like, they know that they're losing the game on the world stage in big and enormous ways. Right? Like, Iran, with a population of approximately 86 million people, and Argentina, with a population of approximately 46 million people, have both applied to join the BRICS. What is that? Stands for the Federative Republic of Brazil, Russian Federation, Republic of India, People's Republic of China, and the Republic of South Africa. This is an alliance. This is like a NATO-level alliance. And you only need to look at the population numbers to put 2 and 2 together on this. That China itself has 1.6 billion, India another 1.6 billion. Like, we're looking at a just basics. We have more people than you, right? And so we need soldiers, right? If we're going to embark on this path of white supremacist world domination the way that we do, right? We need soldiers. I paid $7 for one green bell pepper. Yeah, we're getting there, man. Fuel bill is insane. I drive every time I work. It's $300 to $500 a month. Yep, only gonna go up, bud. Only gonna go up. It's time to start raising your prices, right? That's what everybody's doing. It's time to start raising prices. So here's what's gonna happen, right? As prices begin to rise, or as prices continue to rise, I shouldn't say begin. It's going to push people out of the economy, right? And so what that means, I think about the establishment that I work at, right? A cafe. We've raised prices so we get less traffic, but the people who come in are paying more, right? So you're catering to a smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller group of people. And the prices are going up because it's only this small group of people who can actually afford to even enter the building in the first place. And you know, if you have like $1 billion, you don't give a shit if a sandwich is $50. Like, you don't care. Like, you walk into like a Burger King and you get a burger that used to be $5, that's now $20. Doesn't matter to you, right? Like, you have $1 billion. So eventually what you're going to have is you're going to have stores that are empty for most of the day, where one or two people are going to come in, and when they come in, you're going to charge them a price that's so outrageous that nobody could ever afford it except these small groups of people. And when they come in, you're going to have odd little conversations with them where they're going to go, oh man, where is everybody? Because they're clueless. They don't actually know what's going on, right? They don't actually understand what's happening because they're so detached from regular life. I've been having these conversations with NDPers, right? These NDP losers who lose elections and don't understand what's going on, right? Like, you actually say to them, like, hey, you need to start naming capitalism. Like, you need to actually say that capitalism is the problem. And they will say the most outrageously detached nonsense you've ever heard in your life. Like, oh, we don't want to alienate moderates, right? There are no moderates. There's no such thing as a moderate. That's a stupid thing to think. And the only reason you would think that there are moderates is because you think that the rich people are moderate. If you're standing around saying, oh, I'm a moderate, then you're on the rich side, right? Because you're so detached and clueless that you don't understand that there's another side that's been totally abandoned, completely abandoned, that is suffering, that is going to continue suffering as homelessness spikes, as poverty spreads, right? They seem to think there's a middle ground, right? Which is why they're losing these elections, which is why they're such a worthless party that essentially is like a right, like a moderate right, like a center right party that calls for incremental reformism, which is a lot like throwing a dinghy at somebody who's drowning in a tsunami. Like, no, not even a dinghy, because a dinghy sort of implies that you're going to pull them in. Like water wings. It's like you're throwing water wings at people. Yeah, sounds like any downtown of a city too expensive to live in. Yeah, and who owns these properties, Tinker? Who owns these properties? Right? It's some billionaire oligarch, some absurd property company, right? And what do they do with it? Well, they rent it, or more often they just convert them into Airbnbs, right? Or boarding houses, as I like to call them, right? Which is what this is all turning into. Right? It's just turning into like a neo boarding room situation where people are going to be like traveling around the country trying to find work, and they're going to end up at a boarding house somewhere. Bill Gates is now buying up farmland in the Dakotas. Wonder what he's up to. He's been doing this for a decade now. Like, this isn't news. Bill Gates is the largest farmer. He's the largest agriculturalist in North America. Like, he understands what's happening. Like, he sits down and he looks at the situation and he says, oh, the thing is coming into collapse. What's going to matter is food. Like, if I was a billionaire, I'd be doing exactly the same thing. I'd be buying up all the farmland. I'd be buying up as many watersheds as I possibly could, right? I'd be setting up a little kingdom, the Gates kingdom, right? Like, which is exactly what's happening, or is exactly what has happened. Richard Wolff on his weekly podcast made an interesting comment in regard of any New York median income. The way they measure if someone can afford the rent to a place is by using the 40 rule. Meaning that what is the cost of rent? You multiply that number by 40. In New York, the average rent is $4K a month, meaning the income of that person should have is $160K a year. But the median income in New York is only $80K. Yeah. No wonder that our economy is tanking. Like, and this is by design at this point, guys. Like, the capitalists are not making an error. They're not going oopsie day, right? The policy is extraction and abandonment. That's the policy, right? They're trying to get as much money as they can out of the economy before they leave. That's exactly what they're doing. I have about 30 tomato plants out on the deck. In about a month, I'm going to set up a farm stand. Fantastic. Good for you, bud. That's the thing to do. I feel like I should do the same. Just like the moderate rebels in Syria, yeah. My next apartment will have a balcony so I can grow my own vegetables and share with neighbors. And, like, I think that we should be tearing up land, right? I think that we should be tearing up land. Like, anytime I see a lawn, I'm just like, tear this up. Just tear this up. Don't ask permission. Just tear it up. Trem, don't think I've ever seen you here before. Trem, good to see you. Hopefully you're here to participate. Another thing I wish to ask, what do you think about the brutal regime Israel is doing to the Palestinians? Yeah, like this conversation is the true dark heart of the empire, right? And completely reveals what they're like. This is their plan. Like, what Israel is doing to the Palestinians is the plan. Like, I don't know why we think some other thing is going to happen, right? That they're going to build gates around us. They're going to build infrastructure around us. They're going to put legislative policies onto us. They're going to do everything they can to ensure that if you can't afford the lifestyle on the proper side of the gate, then you get to live on the wrong side of the gate, where you are abandoned completely. And for fun, they'll come to the gate with snipers and shoot children for fun, and they'll giggle and laugh about it with one another, right? Like the Israelis do to the Palestinians. This is the plan. Just take a look at what the border situation, right? Like, what are they doing on the border? If you make it past the border, they take you, they round you up, they jam you into these cells, these concentration camps that they've got going on here, these ICE detention centers, right? Like, you think that what happens in these ICE detention centers is like an education camp or something? Like, you think that they're trying to actually help people out? Like, and all of this activity that we're seeing, right? All this activity that we're seeing is Kingdom of Geneva mapping. We got some new guys in the chat. I'm glad to see it. Hope you're here to participate. What was the real justification for the Iraq War? The justification for the Iraq War was to extract as much wealth as you could, but in reality, the purpose of destroying Iraq and Afghanistan, and they wanted to destroy Iran as well, but they were never able to get in because Iran did the right thing. The true purpose of destroying Iraq and Afghanistan. So first of all, you need to destroy Iraq and Syria and Jordan to expand the borders of Israel, right? Which is this military base that exists in the Middle East. So first of all, there's that, right? But really, they want to make sure that this whole area is destroyed as much as possible, so India, China, and Russia can never develop it. That's the actual reason. So even if they couldn't extract oil from it, even if they couldn't get like bauxite or lithium or any of these kinds of minerals out of these areas, even if they couldn't extract as much wealth as they possibly could, they would still be destroying it. They would still be acting as the terrorists that they are on the world stage. The CIA literally was walking through the streets and just shooting children in Afghanistan, right? Like they would still be doing that. And the reason that they would be doing that is so that China and Russia could never get in here and actually develop it in a meaningful way, right? Because they know that by keeping this area in complete and total turmoil, by completely destroying it, that China and Russia can never benefit from it. And it's not even based, it's their stated agenda, right? Like the Grand Chessboard. Read this book, it's explicitly stated. Like, it's explicitly stated. This is how they operate. This is what they are doing. They've told you, right? You can say based all you like, and I appreciate it. I really do. But the truth is that I'm just telling you what they've already told us. Like they're not hiding this shit, right? Take a look at their plans for Russia, for China rather. Thinking through the unthinkable. So war with China, thinking through the unthinkable. This comes from the Rand Corporation. That's the Pentagon, right? In this book, they explicitly tell us how they are going to go to war with China. Under Obama, they did the pivot to East. They did the pivot to East Asia under Obama, where two-thirds of the Navy moved in to this region, right? And they did so while holding up a book that said, we're going to destroy a third of your trade. Right? We're going to destroy a third of your trade. It's insane. It's crazed. It's delusional, in my view. But that's the plan. The stated agenda. And the idea that China is just going to be like, oh yeah, okay, that's fine. No. No. But because of how pathetic the capitalist system of America is, and how incapable it actually is to respond rationally to what's going on in the world stage, the Chinese are already outmaneuvering them technologically, right? That the technologies that China are creating, quantum computer and these sorts of things, are essentially going to make it impossible for the United States to invade them. Because if they start shooting missiles at China, well, China's going to have computers that are 10 times faster, right? Also, the U.S. invasion on Grenada. I mean, the U.S. invasion on Grenada is small-scale stuff, right? It is. People do make a lot of, but like, this is just classic, like, controlling your own territory shit, right? Setting up a border here. This flows into just more of the invasion of South America, right? Like, America has basically gone in and couped all of these places at one time or another, right? Like, Grenada is just another one of those. Saddam wanted to start. Good to see you, Major. Good to see you, Watson. The glasses, they're coming, bud. They're coming. God help me, they're coming. I'm so looking forward to it, dude. These glasses are giving me a headache. I hate it. Ugh. Please remember, guys, like, share, subscribe, hit the like button. If you want to be part of our Discord server, right? I've got a Discord server where we continue these conversations. We send articles around. We keep talking to one another. Discord, all you got to do is donate $1. Right? Just $1. If you got a buck jangling around, and if you're only donating $1, maybe make it $2. Right? What are your thoughts on the U.S.-funded coup against Libya? Dude, Trem. Libya breaks my heart. Libya breaks my heart. Like, you expect to see U.S. imperialism, right? Like, you expect to see it at this point. Like, I think you got to be just dead in the water to not understand how America operates at this stage in the game. But Libya truly broke my heart. Libya was the most powerful economy on the continent. Gaddafi was doing everything he could to improve the quality of life for his own citizens. He famously said that I will not let my own father have a house until every... Gaddafi didn't do nothing. Yeah, sure, bud. Sure, bud. Like, he all but eliminated homelessness in his own borders. The literacy rate skyrocketed. Built schools. Improved the quality of life for his own citizens. Had the strongest economy on the continent. Like straight up. What was happening in Libya was taking of Marxist and socialist principles and showing how effective and powerful they could be, which is why they had to assassinate him, and they did, right? And then Libya went from being the strongest economy on the continent to literally having open air slave trade, like literally in the space of like 2 years because of the American invasion. Right? And this is all openly talked about, right? You can go take a look at the UN. You can talk... Russia was very outspoken about it, right? They considered this to be an abomination, right? Oh, okay. Maybe that's what you meant, Trem. My mistake if I misinterpreted it. Gaddafi didn't do nothing wrong. Yeah. Like, when Gaddafi took power, he took power bloodlessly, right? It was a bloodless coup. He literally went up to the monarchy and was just like, you're out. and they overthrew him. Like, Libya upsets me a lot. Like, that without a doubt, right? Because they didn't even attempt to make an excuse. Like, that's the big thing. At least when they went into Iraq, they tried to talk about, when they went into Iraq, they at least tried to pretend like there was some sort of threat or something. Literally, the invasion of Libya was just like, fuck this guy. Very simple. Hey, Methane, how you doing? What about Pol Pot? So Pol Pot is an interesting figure because he is widely condemned by almost every section of communists that exist. Right? All communists from all perspectives come down on Pol Pot pretty hard. And the narrative that exists is that Pol Pot was at least somewhat in bed with Western forces. That he was something of a front, right? I don't know nearly enough about Pol Pot to create a counter-narrative to this, but it seems to me that there is a certain degree of truth, and that Pol Pot is pretty much universally reviled as a figure during this period of time. I do think that there could be like a counter narrative of sorts in regards to Pol Pot, simply because I feel oftentimes he's judged harshly because people don't like to admit that the Cambodian War existed, right? Very much how like we don't like to admit that the Donbass War existed, right? We don't like to admit that the Donbass War ever existed, and so you can say what you like about whoever, right? I somewhat feel like Pol Pot is in a kind of a similar situation, but in the same breath, I've seen enough pushback against people, like people who generally have a fairly positive view of people like Stalin, Mao, really come down pretty hard on Pol Pot. And I tend to think that there's truth to that. Why is there a huge lag on posting here? Yeah, bud, who knows? Who knows what YouTube's up to? I mean, YouTube just, like, literally banned me and then unbanned me yesterday. So, it's a miracle the thing is working in the first place, bud. Another good reason, guys, to donate $1 to the Patreon. Get into the Discord so that You can actually still participate if we're banned. Loving, right now, I identify myself as a paleo-conservative. But completely... So, hold on. Paleo-conservative, eh, bud? Paleo-conservative. A person who advocates old or traditional forms of conservatism, an extremely right-wing conservative. Concerns overlap with the old right that opposed the New Deal in the 1930s and 40s. Like a Pat Buchanan conservative? All right. I've shifted people to the left before, bud. We'll get you. This whole idea of paleo-conservatism fails. It descends the nation into war. For sure. So I strongly advise rethinking this position, right? Another thing I want to ask is your thoughts on the banking system in America. The banking system is completely fraudulent. Like there's no other way to call it, right? So in the 1970s, they moved themselves off of the gold standard, right? Created a fiat currency, and then started to create what I call just a fake economy, right? When you actually read like the financial press, they talk about the real economy, right? Well, the real economy tends to, if you've got a real economy, that means you've got a fake economy. And what's your fake economy? Well, the fake economy comes from the banking sector just trading stocks and bonds with itself, right? That if all you're doing is just trading little pieces of paper with one another, if all you're doing is trading currencies and all this kind of stuff, right? Then who controlled the banks, though? Well, the banks are largely regulated, if you want to call it regulated, by the Federal Reserve, right? The Federal Reserve System. But ultimately, like, the money that exists in America is controlled by the oligarchy, and the oligarchy is the old money. Like, you really want to care more about places like BlackRock, right? Like, you want to care about who actually owns material objects. That's what you really actually want to care about, right? Hello again, you Fazat-headed Fazat man. Mocked. I don't know if I should be. I feel like I should be insulted, right? But who controlled the banks, though? Like, the bank is controlled by the Federal Reserve. The Federal Reserve responds to the oligarchy. The oligarchy is owned by groups like BlackRock, right? Vanguard, right? These are the owners of the society, right? And the primary beneficiaries are people like Elon Musk, Bezos, Gates, right? Like, are we going down the fun quote unquote? Yeah, I think that's exactly what Trem was sort of hoping was going to happen here. Yeah. Oh, the real problem. I'm a paleo-conservative, and I think the real problem with the society is that the Jews run the bank. No, bud. No. Like, are there Jewish people who own property and all of that? Yeah, probably. Right? Like, but the idea that, like, the Jews run the bank. Right? It's just, it's a scapegoat. It's what wealthy people do, and what they when they are threatened, they try to judo throw you, right? So if they can't convince you that it's the immigrants, if they can't convince you that it's the poor, right? They'll try to convince you that it's like the Jews or some foreign group or something. Anything to convince you that the problem is not the rich. Anything to convince you that the problem is not the people doing the problem, right? Ignore the big hoarded pile of money. Ignore the dragon sitting on top of it. No, the problem is the little Jewish guy who's doing everything he can to just try to make his way through it. Yeah, that's the real problem, right? Pay no attention to the guy, like, literally shooting himself into space. Don't pay any attention to that, right? Don't pay any attention to the guy that owns like a multi-billion-dollar national corporation that is literally attempting to get to fucking Mars. Don't pay any attention to these guys. Don't pay any attention whatsoever to the multinational billion, like multi-trillion dollar organization like BlackRock. Don't pay any attention whatsoever to these huge multinational corporations. No, the problem is the Jew. That's deluded. That's deluded to a level where you gotta look in a mirror and genuinely ask yourself, why am I fucking racist? Because that's exactly what's happening. That's exactly what's happening. If you can be convinced so easily in the face of overwhelming evidence to the contrary, you gotta ask yourself some big, big, big questions. Really? The rich is the Jewish? Really? Bezos is a Jew? Right? Musk is a Jew? Musk is the richest man in America. By a lot. It's not close. It's not close at all. Right? He's from South Africa. Like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, what the fuck are you talking about, bud? Look at the BlackRock. Yeah, I do, bro. Like, for real. Who are you talking about? Name names. Oh, okay, so you got George Soros. You got one guy. So, sure, there is a Jew who you scapegoat in the face of the system, right? So you're making the racist decision to be a racist, right? And it's a decision, it's a choice. Yeah, there are rich Jewish people, and there are rich South Africans, and there are rich black people, and there are rich Venezuelans, and there are rich Canadians, and there are rich Americans, and there are rich Russians, and there are rich Chinese people, right? You are choosing, actively deciding to selectively narrow your perspective onto an individual race and scapegoat that race so that you can protect the system. You can protect the system that's generating the problems. So you'll kill the Jew and maintain the system that's oppressing you. And you're doing that by choice. You're deciding to do that. That's very, very dumb. It's a very dumb perspective to take. Because you're literally going to create war in your own society. You're a paleoconservative, so that's the end result anyway. But you're going to create war in your society to expel the group that you're scapegoating. In this example, the Jew. And what's the result? The system that's fucking you over in the first place stays completely in place. That your complaint is not with the Jew, it's with a class of people, of which, sure, there are Jews within. But if you extract those Jews, the system remains in place. So you're wasting your time. Not only are you wasting your time, you're alienating yourself from people who could be ostensibly your allies. Because it's completely in the interest of the wealthy class. It's completely in the interest of the wealthy class to funnel your energy away from them towards whoever you're willing to allow yourself to scapegoat. That if you were saying, you know what the problem is? The problem is the blacks. They would be funneling you straight at the blacks. The problem is the Jews. They'd be funneling to you towards the Jews. The problem is the South African. This isn't only a class issue. Yes, it is. Like, I hate to break it to you, bud. Yes, it is. That you are attempting to make it something else for your own reasons, and those reasons are dumb. If you ignore the class issue, It's a racial issue too. All you're doing is you're holding up a shield. All you're doing is you're holding up a shield and attempting to say, oh, I care about racism and race, and defending yourself against class issues and deflecting them away from class issues in order to empower your own position, which is dumb, fundamentally. Because fundamentally what you are saying is that the issue is what? Like, Jew blood? Is that what the issue is? That, like, there's something wrong with their genetic code? Is that what you're saying? Like, at what point is it like angels and shit? Like, at what point is your point essentially like, I know in my gut that the scheming Jew is a demon? Like, at what point are you the same as like a raving psycho, right? Like, what is actually backing your position is essentially just like animalistic rage. That's basically it. That you've got just like this little monkey inside of yourself, which you do, incidentally, right? There's this monkey inside of yourself, and the monkey is just convinced that this group of people, based on whatever, right? Based on whatever. Like, literally you look at them and you just go, I don't like the way they look. I don't like their hair color, right? I don't like that kind of thing. Maybe you've got buddies, maybe you got a dad who was an anti-Semite as well, right? Maybe you've got these sorts of things going on around you. But in the end, it's literally no different than just like a dog growling at a black guy. Like, that's really all it is. And it's as reductive as it can get. And basically when you say to me, like, I don't want to focus on class issues, you're just saying, I don't want to think about it, I want to be a monkey. Because that's what's happening. You're just succumbing and giving up and saying, I am not going to get any more, I'm not going to allow intelligence, I'm not going to think about things. I'm just going to let my monkey self take over and be a monkey in the world. I mean, you're a paleoconservative, so it makes sense, right? Like, you basically don't want to understand the class system. You don't want to understand who your enemy actually is. You don't want to understand the oppressor. You don't want to do a structural analysis. You don't want to know much about the history. You don't want to know anything about what's going on in the society, right? You don't want to actually do the hard work of analysis because it's easier to just pick a group and scapegoat it. So it's lazy. It's just laziness. I don't care. Send them. I would align myself more with the strategists. Let's go. Let's go. A strand of Nazism. Okay, now we're getting honest. Good. Good. Be honest. Right? A strand of Nazism, right? Oh yeah, the Nazis, right? The really good, the powerful stuff, right? Calling for a more radical mass action, worker-based form of ideology, espousing economic anti-Semitism above other anti-Semitic forms. To achieve a national rebirth. It derived its name from Gregor and Otto Strasser, yet two brothers, who opposed on strategic grounds the views of Adolf Hitler, was expelled from the Nazi Party. So not only was he part of the loser party, he was a loser within the loser party, right? So you're espousing the view of a loser within the loser party, right? Literally, the Nazis fought one war and lost, right? And this guy got expelled from it before it even happened. So you're aligning yourself with a loser within a loser party, dude. Good start. And that's the question. Why? Like, why are you wasting your time with these total losers who achieved basically nothing, right? Like, didn't even make it into his own party, right? The war shouldn't have happened in the beginning. What are you talking about? What do you think was going to happen with these guys, dude? Like, you don't get to walk around and say the problem is the Jews and then the result is peace. It's literally not what's going to happen. Like, straight up. Like, you essentially right now are saying to me 1 + 1 equals pink. Like, it doesn't compute. It doesn't make any sense at all. Like, the problem with the Nazi Party was that they did Nazism wrong. No. No, no, no. What happened with the Nazi Party is what the Nazis do. It's how Nazis are. It's what Nazism is. Right? The whole idea of there's no peaceful extermination of races. Right? There's no peaceful extermination of a minority group. That doesn't exist. There's no such thing. And this idea that, like, Hitler didn't exterminate the Jews right, like, it doesn't exist. So you're living, not only are you aligning yourself with the loser party of, like, a loser within a loser party, you're aligning with them because he didn't exterminate the Jews correctly. Like, isn't it crazy that Drippler literally asked for peace 24 times? And what the fuck are you talking about, bud? Like, yeah, of course they're gonna ask for peace, right? Because what they're telling everyone to do is surrender, dummy. Like, of course they're calling for peace. They're walking into the room with a big rifle, pointing it at everybody and saying, hey, are we gonna have a nice peaceful time? We're going to be peaceful. This is the peace of Nazism. It's capitulation and surrender. What a joke, dude. Didn't even want war. What a joke. Like, what a joke, dude. Like, what are you talking about? Then why do it? If he didn't want war, then why do it? Like, he didn't want it, so why do it? And then the very next breath, stand up for race. Like, he didn't want war, but he did war. Right? Like, what in the fuck are you even talking about? Like, straight up, dude. Like, what in the fuck are you even talking about? Like, that's like brain dead. I'm not getting into the Holodomor with you, dude. I'm not opening that up. He's channeling Pat Buchanan's book on how World War II didn't happen if the West just made peace with Hitler. Yeah, right. All we had to do is make peace with a literal force that is doing war that we deny they were interested in. Like, what? Who were the antagonists here, bud? Like, if you want to get into the actual history of it, right? Like, the rise of Nazism occurs because of the Allies' decision post-World War I to maintain the debt peonage against Germany, to humiliate them economically, and to grind them into poverty. Right? No, Marx wasn't an anti-Semite, dude. Like, you can find in the writings of Marx, in the personal letters that he sent back and forth between Engels, like, a racial slur. And you can pretend like a guy saying a racial slur one time makes him an anti-Semite. No, he wasn't, dude. Like, you're embarrassing yourself. You're embarrassing yourself, bud. Like, this is cringy embarrassment. Like, super cringy embarrassment, dude. Look at his letter. Yeah, I just told you about them, bud. And you're deciding that because he used one racial slur on one occasion, one time, that makes somebody an anti-Semite. Like, pretty embarrassing. Like, it's a pretty embarrassing position to take. Like, big cringe. Big cringe. Like, that overwhelms all evidence to the contrary. Right? Marx's family was Jewish, had to convert to Lutheranism so his father could practice law. Like, shut the fuck up, bud. Like, for real. It's time to ask questions. It's time to stop making statements. Like, you actually don't know what you're talking about. And it's time to just accept that Start asking questions, stop making statements. Because you don't actually know anything. And you're coming into places and making like statements as if they're true, and you're just embarrassing yourself looking like an idiot. While aligning yourself with the losers of a loser party who fought one war and lost. Got beat up by the fucking communists. Like, and while simultaneously trying to tell me that Nazis could possibly not engage in war? What are you talking about? Like, what are you talking about? Their entire ethos is a war-based ethos. There's no such thing as rounding up a racial group and killing it peacefully. It doesn't exist. It's a war ideology that is based on the premise of war. That if you are not picking up weapons and attempting to destroy an ethnic group or a political group, then why are you allying yourself with Nazism in the first place? So it's an embarrassing position in an embarrassing position. Like, Jesus Christ, bud. Like, Jesus Christ. Like, for real, stop listening to the people that you hang out with, bud. Whoever you're hanging out with, it's just time to say no. Right? These guys are clueless losers who are leading you down an embarrassing path. Right? And you're never going to get laid this way, bud. Like, it's not going to fucking happen. Like, it's just cringy embarrassment. Like, if you want to talk about Zionism, bud, we could talk about Zionism. Right? What's happening in Israel is unacceptable, for sure. But the solution is not fucking Nazism. All you're doing is all you're doing is just perpetuating the problem. Right? Like, it's like you're trying to tell me that the solution to it's like you're trying to tell me that the way to beat a guy with a gun is to a good guy with a gun, right? It's the same kind of logic. We just need a good guy with a gun. That'll do it. When you look at everything that Marx wrote about the Jews, he defended the Jews, recognized the oppression they were experiencing. Yeah. Yep, folks, this is the type of antisocial clown we will meet in the streets. I assume this guy thinks fascism is a helpful ideology that bring up the working class and his bottom-up movement. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. These types love to show up when you table, especially on post-secondary campuses, because they're often young guys. Yeah, if anything, I would want a Christian autocratic nation. Well, that's what you're getting, bud. That's what you're getting. Like, that's what's happening. And you're gonna see why it's a huge mistake. Like, you're gonna see. No, I think it's worth having these conversations, right, Mark? I think it's worth having these conversations, right? Like, these people exist. Mark, this guy represents the majority in American politics at this point. Like, we can't just ignore and move on. Like, we literally can't. Right? Like, we literally can't. That a guy like Trem represents a majority within the American populace. And certainly within the American political system. You don't get to just ignore them and move on. Right? As much as you'd like to. Right? As much as we'd like to pretend like these guys don't represent the majority view, right? As long as we like to pretend like these guys represent we should have these conversations, but do self-identified Nazis deserve a seat at the table? Well, here they are. Here you are. Because you know what I'm sick and tired of? Really, Mocked? Do you know what I'm sick and tired of? Right? I'm sick and tired of pretending like we're going to beat these guys by, like, writing letters. I really am. Like, I'm sick and tired of us all pretending like what we're gonna do is we're gonna get on social media and we're gonna spread around a bunch of shit, right? All you gotta do is ignore them, right? All you gotta do is ban them. All you gotta do is just, like, create your little safe space, right? All you got to do is create a little box, right? And then you and your buddies can be in the little box. And anytime a Nazi comes in, you get to be like, haha, what a loser. And then get rid of them, right? Well, guess what? Too bad. Too bad. You know why it's too bad, right? Because while we're in this social media space sending around memes to one another about how shitty it is, these guys are literally getting justices and overturning Roe v. Wade to fuel their Christian autocratic white supremacist nation. Like, it is time to get into the streets. I have been organizing protests. Nobody shows up. What do you think? What do you think? Like, these people exist. They are real. You can't just ignore them. I never brought up the rhetoric of white supremacy. I don't think you know what Nazism is, dude. Yeah. The overturn of Roe v. Wade demonstrates the paradox of tolerance. It will allow the fascists to win. Like, I mean, what we are going to see in America very clearly, and it's very black and white, is that we're going to see a sharp turn away from the Democratic Party. Like, what happens in the midterms might be so devastating that Biden will resign. Like, there's rumblings of that being the case. That, like, we might get another Hillary Clinton campaign. A complete disaster. But, like, when was the last time that we actually saw a president resign because the midterms were so embarrassing for him? Like, that's what's coming in America, right? Joe Biden's approval ratings are as low as they can possibly go. Let's go, Brandon, right? It's a total fucking disaster for everybody involved. And then in 2024... at 2024, right? 2024, we're going to get the Republicans in because the Republicans are going to show up and vote. People like Trem are going to come and vote, right? And nobody's going to vote Democrat. So we're going to get, and it is true, they're both the same two wings on the same bird, yeah. We're going to get a big fist in the face, right? So instead of the psychopath being pretty bird, pretty bird, pretty bird, he's going to slap. Like, that's what's going to happen. That's what's coming. Like, for God's sakes, while the Democrats have the presidency, the House, and the Senate, the Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade. Like, it's going to get extreme. It's going to get very real. It's going to be terrorizing. It's going to empower your paleo-conservative types. Right? There's no two ways about it. It is what is coming, and you're not going to solve it behind your computer screen, which is exactly where the powerful want you to be and want you to stay. Right? Like, they don't care if you grumble into your cups while watching some guy on a live stream. They don't care about that at all. Like, and the quote unquote leftist or quote unquote progressive streamers that exist, right, are actually doing the power structure a total favor. Let people know about the disaster that is America, as long as they stay indoors. As long as they stay inside, as long as they're listening to people like Hassan, as long as they're listening to people like Hakeem, as long as they're listening to all of these guys, right? As long as they're talking to all these guys, right? And as long as that's where they stay, then it's fine. That's the second time I heard the bird thing. Can't remember hearing the analogy for too many times. Was there propaganda featuring it later? So sick of this censorship by YouTube and Reddit. Well, I mean, YouTube and Reddit have this incredible... They have this incredible... like, it's insane what's happening. Like, it's insane when you think about what's happening, guys. Like, this isn't like a bunch of people getting into like a pub and then getting all riled up and like grabbing their pitchforks and stuff, right? Like, this is like the platforms have become digitized, and now you've got these big corporate entities that are walking around, right? That own the pub, right? That own the public space where the conversations are taking place. And now, especially with the overturning of Roe v. Wade, right? Especially with the overturning of Roe v. Wade, people are terrified of what's happening, right? The powerful are getting terrified, right? Like, because the truth is that they're not very powerful. Not really, right? Like, they're overwhelming in terms of their technology and in terms of their monetary wealth, and they're powerful within the structure of the system they dominate. But should the populace realize, oh, this system is worthless, stop participating and get out on the streets, that will be the end of them. Like, they're not actually that powerful. They can't actually fight on the grounds that the populace is capable of fighting on. Which is to say, very simply, if 1 million people surround their house, there's not much they can do about it. Like, no, not really. No, don't get me wrong. I love Hakeem, right? He's got a great little book club going on, right? It's more and more how I'm feeling about like Fight Back, how I'm feeling about these guys, right? Like, if you want a nice little book club, right? Like, if that's what you're after, is a nice little book club to go read books and get academic with and all that kind of stuff, you know where to go. You know where the book club is, right? It's fine. Have a little book club. It's cool. No, you got it, Ward. Good to see you, by the way, Ward. Seems like shift away from feudalism towards state political authority is underway. Think local. We have to think local. Like, we have to. The weakness of this channel, and I've said it over and over and over again, the weakness of this channel is that we're too spread out. That if I had 20 people watching me and we were all in Toronto, and I was saying, hey, August 1st, come to Bloor and Bedford, 4 p.m., and 20 people came, we would be enormously powerful. But we're too spread out. And so our goal is to create those pockets of resistance where we are. All right, number draw. You guys are calling for numbers. I'm with you, Mocked. We're doing a 7.
Here we go for today's number.
Pick a number between 1 and 10.
June 28,
In the chat.
2022.
Even you, Trem.
10 balls.
Let's go.
Each ball has a number. Numbers 1 through 10.
Here we go. I'm feeling a 7.
Whirl the
JR, CR, Strifey, good to see you guys. Tinker, good to see you guys. Trem, you're in with a 7. Okay, bud.
Pick a number.
Just watch. Today's the 7, guys.
Today's number is 5.
5. We got DM hit it. Major hit it. Anybody else hit it? Nah. Good. We got a couple. Ward, you came in late, Ward, but I'll give it to you. We'll assume it's the timing. So we got 3 winners today. 5, 5, 5. 5, 5, 5, 5, 5, 5, 5. All right. Let me get my guitar. All right. Oof. I need a new guitar, man. This one's not holding the tune. Half of 8 is 3. Thank you, sir. Whatever. Gotta sleep another month inside this sucks. This year sucks. Can you blame a man for trying to give it up, and this year sucks? Another day won't help that pain inside your back. The days get harder, but it's too hard to keep track. They keep you tied before your soul opens a crack. And God don't care what monkeys think about the fact. And this year sucks. This year sucks. Can you blame a man for trying to give it up, and this year sucks? So sit atop your pile of bones and bloody gold, and human sacrifice don't stop you being old. At least you'll die before the bomb you said explodes. We're gonna burn to death while doing what we're told. And this year sucks. This year sucks. Can you blame a man for trying to give it up, and this year sucks? It burns down anyway. It burns down anyway. It burns down anyway. It burns down anyway. Oh yeah, Kea shows up. Kea shows up. Kea the pissed off Canadian. Kea shows up. For real. I think we need to make protests that have tangible chances of making a difference, get a few wins under a belt where I'll inspire more to join us. Look, the protests that we have been doing, okay, have been working. How do I know? Okay, I've been organizing with a trans right activist by the name of Isabella Gamp, right? How do I know it's working? Because they're trying to buy her off. There's no two ways about it, right? That she went from living in shitty conditions, right, shitty apartment, well, they got her a new apartment. So it's working. How do I know? Because they're trying to buy her off. Right? It won't be much longer until they try to buy me off. Right? They're going to do everything they can to buy us off, to get us to shut up. So what we're doing is working. Maybe you're not seeing it because it's not the mass social change that you're looking for. But the buy off is in, and they're trying to make it work. They're trying to shut us up. And they're trying with honey first. Right? So the idea that it's not working, it's working. For sure. I am watching it work. They do not want us to block streets. They do not want us to make a ruckus. They do not want us to cause problems. He yelled at me for garbage excuses, gives big red flags. Again, August 1st, Bloor and Bedford, come protest. All right, I'm going to play one of my nicer ones. God got asked a question by my niece who's 5 years old. What's the world gonna be like when I'm old? I looked up at the crimson smoke-filled sky. I said, what's the harm in telling one more lie? I said, everybody's safe, no one's living in the streets. You never need to worry if you're gonna get to Eden. Antarctica is covered in ice, and everybody's happy, and wouldn't that be nice? The burning sun won't leave a paper trail. Why work so hard if it's too big to fail? And what's the point in feeding this machine if it won't make the world in our dreams, where everybody's safe, no one's living in the streets? You never need to worry if you're gonna get to Eden. Antarctica is covered in ice, and everybody's happy. And wouldn't that be nice? And I know one day my maker I will meet, when death's sweet kiss comes to sweep me off my feet. I hope by then we've learned a little more. I'd like this place to be better than before, so everybody's safe, no one's living in the streets. You never need to worry if you're gonna get to Eden. Antarctica is covered in ice. And everybody's safe, no one's living in the streets. You never need to worry if you're gonna get to Eden. Antarctica is covered in ice. Antarctica is covered in ice. Have I discussed Tamara Litch yet? Not yet. Tamara Litch got picked up. Pat King is still in custody. So the goal for protest is to get paid? I mean, yeah, right? Like, we're trying to double ODSP. Like, we're trying to get a basic income in. We're trying to get this kind of stuff. Like, yeah. I wouldn't put it so meagerly, methane. But like, we're trying to improve the quality of the life of the populace. We're trying to get the productivity of the populace into the hands of the populace. We're trying to get people paid. No doubt. No doubt. Don't shy away from it. Right? It is what it is. But, like, these bills got to be paid. Well, I mean, they don't got to be paid, but all this kind of stuff. But, like, that's the reality. I would prefer to live in a world where all of this getting paid shit is sort of not existent. No. Oh yeah, I agree with you though on this point. Just seems like a bad way to measure a successful protest. They offered to buy one person off, so they stopped. Not really a result I can applaud. It's not real, but it shows you that there's a movement. It shows you that they are noticing and that something is happening, right? And I'm not saying that like we should applaud it. That's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying we should be there like, yeah, they tried to buy us off, yeah. But I am saying that it exists, it's real, and so they're noticing and it's having an impact. Right? And of course their go-to is to just be, let's try to buy off the person who's making the noise. Right? So I'm not trying to say, yeah, they're buying us off, yeah. Like that's not what I'm saying. But I am acknowledging that it exists. And that the thing that I am celebrating is not the act of them doing it. It's the acknowledgement. It's the acknowledgement. That's what it is, more than anything. That's how I take it. That it's working. I just passed 50% of my 100-mile hiking challenge. Good for you, bud. What's stronger, 50 years of useless protests or one orange boy appointing a judge? To be fair, Barnabas, like, it's not one orange boy appointing a judge. Like, the Republican Party has been pushing on this one for decades. It's been decades and decades and decades of work to make this happen. Like, this is one thing that I really remind people. I have friends who are quite skittish about a similar thing happening in Canada. It's not gonna go down that way. It's not gonna go down that way for two good reasons, right? Reason number one, our conservatives simply have not been pushing on it. The Harper conservatives literally banned, like within their own ranks, any kind of conversation about this. They have no pieces in place. They're not moving on it. Number two, our Supreme Court system is different. It's a much different system. Like in America, like literally anybody can be appointed. If the president wanted to appoint like their buddy from college, they could, right? Like, yeah, I'll appoint Sal Galone. Right? Sal Galone, he knows how to get you a good deal. He'll make a good Supreme Court justice. Right? Like, they for real could do that in America. That's how stupid their system is. In Canada, the Prime Minister has to select the person who gets appointed to the Supreme Court from a list of judges that the court system itself creates and generates. Right? And to even get on that list means that you have to have been part of the court system and been a judge and an appellate judge, I think, for forever. Right? You had to have actually been part of the system. Isabella did get Mike Schreiner to commit to doubling ODSP, which forced the NDP to follow, and Ford is giving 5%, which isn't much, but it's more than we would have got. Well, we'll see if he actually does it. Sal Gabaloni sounds like a member of the Gambino crime family. Yeah, exactly. Democracy is cringe. I mean, Western democracy certainly is. Like, we don't have a... it's just a popularity contest, right? Like, you just got to win a popularity contest. And so who's going to win that popularity contest? The guy with the most money, right? Like, that's how it works. If you spend $1 billion, you can be the prime minister or the president or whoever, right? Like, you can make it happen. It seems like we need a merger of an idea between like a democratic system, a system in which the populace can actually respond to and deal with, but also some kind of educational system so that the people who are actually in power are trained how to be governors, right? Like, it's insane. It's insane. The more you think about it, the more insane it becomes that somebody like DeSantis can just be the governor of Florida and just writes laws when he's fucking a clueless boob. Like, he's an idiot, right? He just wins one election and suddenly he gets to write law. Like, that's insanity. There's no system of training. There's no system to be like, okay, you found out how to be the governor. Like, we've trained you to be a good governor. Like, there's none of that going on. And that all just kind of flows into the sort of childish nature of our society, right? The democracy of state and revolution sounds cool, yeah. Not just popularity to even run for leader of a party. You need to have 30K, yeah. No, DeSantis isn't even controlled opposition, dude. Like, DeSantis is like, he's probably going to be the next guy after Trump, right? And DeSantis isn't controlled opposition. DeSantis is just straight up fascism. Like, he's straight up. Like, he's one of these guys that's pushing for all this shit. Let's hope Trudeau does not invoke another Emergencies Act on Canada today just because Canadians are waving flags in Ottawa. Yeah, we'll see, man. We'll see. Like, it seems to me like a lot of Canadians have bought into the idea that the Emergencies Act being used was valid. Right? How the fuck is he a fascist? What? DeSantis is part of the Republican Party apparatus. Like, he's literally signing in legislation to, like, remove voters' rights, to remove, like, abortion rights. He's literally positioning himself within a power structure that is explicitly attempting to dismantle the minor democratic system, the book banning, all this kind of stuff. Like, DeSantis is a fascist on the face of it. Like, he's overt. Like, if you don't think DeSantis is a fascist, I just don't think you know what fascism is. Like, he wants to empower the corporate power structure, and he wants to dude, you're illiterate, so I don't know what you're even talking about. Like, I don't know, your opinion doesn't matter to me at all, bud. Like, like, I don't know why you're chiming in. Like, you should be listening. You get a gator. Here you go, John Smith. Here you go. This is this is the strategy. I'm John Sanderson. I'm here to run for an election for Florida governor. And my platform is simple. Everybody gets a gator. The only way to beat a bad man with a gator is a good man with a gator. And if you don't have a gator, I'm going to give you a gator. We're going to get a gator and put on your front lawn so Gatorgate can gator your gator. And once that gator gators that gator, every gator will gator his gator. Gators. Vote John Sanderson. Get a gator in your gator. Florida man, 2024. Food prices spiking. Looking forward to the eco-fascism. We Americans are dancing on the Titanic. Our iceberg is not far away. This one I think I'm actually going to read. This comes from This comes from Francine Prose, The Guardian. Right? The greatest shock of all would be to wake up and find that while we were driving the kids to soccer practice and enjoying cocktails, autocracy took hold. By now, the U.S. Supreme Court's overturning of Roe v. Wade hardly comes as a surprise. We've known this was imminent since the leak a month or so ago of Justice Alito's memo, and yet it still delivers a profound shock. In fact, a series of shocks. Stunned, we asked, how could this happen? As if we hadn't known for weeks that it was a more or less done deal. What's shocking is the actualization of the scary Handmaid's Tale scenario. Our growing suspicion that Margaret Atwood's fictional dystopia, a society in which women are forced to bear children and brutally punished for disobedience, is nearer to becoming a reality than we might have imagined. What's shocking is this proof of the court's desire and ability to control and punish women, to deprive us of our constitutional rights. What's shocking is the justice's reckless disregard for the additional suffering that this ruling will cause poor women, women of color, and those living in rural areas. What's shocking is the memory of 3 of the current justices swearing under oath to preserve the precedent established by Roe v. Wade. What's shocking is the realization that we are living in a country that now boasts some of the world's most misogynist and repressive laws. What's shocking is the knowledge that the institution I grew up seeing as committed to the most precious guarantees of the Constitution and to the highest and most sensibly bipartisan ideals of justice is now in the hands of a powerful faction of extremists. But what shocks me most is the fact that according to surveys that keep surfacing and being reported, a substantial majority of Americans support abortion rights and oppose the outright ban. According to the latest Gallup poll, 85% of the population believes that abortion should be legal under some circumstances. What's noteworthy is not that high number so much as the discrepancy between that figure and the substance of Supreme Court ruling. What's shocking is yet another fact that we have known or suspected for some time, that we are living under minority rule, that in some of the most essential ways, the wishes of the majority no longer determine government policy, and that it has become a kind of joke to suggest that our government at the highest level is responding to the will of the people. Meanwhile, these shocks are intensified and amplified by how little we seem willing or able to do about the slow-motion stealth with which the seeds of autocracy are being planted. We're living under minority rule, we say, and then go on to plan the kids' birthday parties, to try to find a job and pay the bills, to complain at the gas pump, see our friends, celebrate the good weather and the new freedom occasioned by the latest downturn in the pandemic. Social media is abuzz with valuable and necessary suggestions for circumventing the new measures. How to obtain abortion pills from abroad. How to help women travel to states where abortion is still permitted. But I have yet to see a truly viable and broad-based plan for influencing the legislators of the so-called trigger states that have outlawed abortion in the immediate wake of the Supreme Court ruling. It's hard not to notice that our passivity is being encouraged by the mainstream media's commitment to fair and balanced reporting. In the coverage I watched on the night of the ruling, not only on the primetime channels but on PBS, equal time was given to the exaltation of the pro-life, the regrettable term suggesting that its opponents are anti-life, faction, and to the anger and disappointment of women who wish only to maintain control over our own bodies. How can it not add to our sense that the country is equally divided, deeply and hopeless factionalized, and therefore that nothing can be done? In fact, the two sides are not equal, but one side is grievously underrepresented in the places where it matters the most. It's never been more important to insist on our rights, not only as women, not only as Americans, but as human beings. We need to talk to our friends, make plans, apply unceasing pressure on our state and local governments, hold every political candidate accountable. We may need to forget our pressing worries over inflation and gasoline prices just long enough to take to the streets with unceasing frequency and in greater numbers in order to make our beliefs and our voices heard. Because the greatest shock of all would be to wake up one morning and find that while we were driving the kids to soccer practice and enjoying that welcome after-work cocktail, more and more of our rights had been stripped away, as has happened in so many countries in which democracy vanished, overnight and in darkness, when, as it were, no one was looking. The overturning of Roe v. Wade should shock us even more than it already does. Shock us into looking beyond the dance floor of the Titanic and spotting that iceberg looming in our path, not so very far away. Everything I disagree with is fascist. Yeah, this sort of nonsense bullshit. Embarrassing. As long as you say everything I disagree with is fascist with a mocking tone, then you never need to actually address what you believe is fascism. Dude, you literally ally yourself with a Nazi. I don't know what to tell you. This guy probably thinks Stefan Molyneux is a balanced figure, yeah. Just inflation, hits the grocery store, can't wait for Pierre to win. Yeah. It's for sure going to be Pierre Poilievre, I think. It's amazing how despite how much is against us, we're still prevailing with the power of Christ. Well, I mean, if you actually read your Bible, I'm sure you don't, you'll see that you stand against him, not with him. You reading this while playing a tune? Yeah. I'm a powerful man. What can I say? I'm a Christian. Christianity is completely opposed to the use of state. So this is a good moment, guys, to tell you. What have I been telling you the whole time? What have I been telling you this whole time? Read your Bible. Right? Read your Bible. There's guys like Trem walking around pretending to be Christians, right? Pretending that they understand the book of Christ, pretending like they actually have read it and care about it, when they don't, right? It's all just an act or a delusion. And they're going to come in and they're going to say these things to you. They're going to say that, like, the power of Christ and all this kind of stuff. Well, read your Bible. Actually go and read it. You're going to find out pretty quickly that that's all heretical bullshit. That Christ was fighting on behalf of the poor and minorities, and he was fighting against the state, right? He was fighting on behalf of the very people that Trem wants to round up, right? Read your Bible. Actually do it. You're going to be surprised. Yeah, dude, if you were you're a child of God, but you want to round up some of them, eh? That's what it is? Child of God, but the problem is the Jews, right? You're no Christian, bud. You're not a Christian. You're not even close. Not even remotely close. You don't get to call yourself a Christian and a Nazi at the same time. Like, grow up. Communist Party condemns role reversal, right? All out to defend abortion rights. I don't know that I'll read this one. I mean, it's pretty straightforward, right? Communist Party condemns role reversal. Good to see it, right? I've already stated my position. Hold on, because let me see if I can find. Well. Like, it would be as if they banned taking a shit, in my view. Like, imagine if they banned taking a shit. Right? I don't see, like, what do you think would happen if they did that? So, Ghislaine Maxwell, accomplice to Jeffrey Epstein, sentenced to 20 years in prison for sex trafficking. So, I'm almost positive that she's going to spend those 20 years in, like, a villa, right? And now they're doing everything they can to pretend it was Ghislaine who was the real enforcer, right? She was the enforcer. She was the groomer. She controlled everything. Stop paying attention to Jeffrey Epstein. Jeffrey Epstein doesn't matter. Ghislaine Maxwell, she's the one that really matters. So she's going to spend 20 years in federal prison, probably a villa. I bet you she'll be out in 5 for good behavior, right? That's my bet. Oh, seriously, what is wrong about simply loving your race? Trem. There you go. Now you're asking the big questions, bud. Now you're asking the big questions. Okay, bud. Here we go. So the God that you believe in, right? The power of the universe that we live in, right? The creative force that spawned all things. Okay? It also created black people and Jews and other ethnic groups, right? That it created you, and then it created a whole bunch of others. And what you're doing by finding pride in the white race, right, is excluding sections of God's creation from your worldview. That I think it's fine to have a certain kind of happiness or pride in a culture, but white culture doesn't actually exist. There is no such thing as like white culture. White culture exists as a reflection against non-white culture. That it is, by its very definition and its very existence, a form of supremacy. And if you look at the history of Europe and America, what you find is that you had a bunch of white groups fighting each other until it came time to suppress non-white groups. And then those came together. And Malcolm X was a response to white supremacy. That Malcolm X's position was that we have to, as non-white people, we must group together against the white supremacy, because he did not believe that white people could actually wake up and recognize that what they were doing was destructive. Or if they did recognize that it was destructive, they were fine with it. That Malcolm X was of a community that was being actively destroyed, and still is being actively destroyed by the white power center that you say that you are proud of. Right? And this idea, this thing that you're doing where you're both sidesing it, right? You're essentially saying that a person who fights back against somebody who fights them is equally wrong. It's a childish position to take. If someone walks up to you and starts beating you about the head, you have the right to fight back. And if a group of people align themselves along racial lines, white people, right, and refuse to do anything but that, and continuously go after non-white people, then those non-white people, including people like Malcolm X, need to get together and fight back. And your complaint is that they're doing so. And what you will say when they fight back is, why can't we just have unity and peace? When what you really mean is, why don't you just surrender and accept your oppression? That's what's actually being said. Operation COINTELPRO. Okay. It's good for us to brush up on these things. Like, you're just mad that they're fighting back, bud. That's all. You're just mad that the white race isn't just dominating everybody the way that you want them to. That's it. A series of covert and illegal projects conducted by the United States Federal Bureau of Investigation aimed at surveilling, infiltrating, discrediting, disrupting domestic American political organizations, targeted groups, feminist groups, the Communist Party, anti-Vietnam, activists of the Civil Rights Movement, the Black Power Movement. Yeah. You're kind of just proving my point, bud. Like, how do you think this helps you? Like, the CIA, the largest terrorist organization that works on behalf of the white supremacist power structure, infiltrated the Black Panther Party, the Nation of Islam, right, the Black Power Movement, the anti-Vietnam War organizers, the feminist movement, civil rights movement, right? Like, these groups should organize and fight back against these terrorists. Like, the CIA is the largest terrorist organization on the planet by a lot. But it's like, it's not close. That's why it's so charming when Americans complain about something the KGB does or something like the Chinese Secret Service does. I'm always just like, that's pretty charming. It's a charming position to take. Because if you are going to hold on to a position that says white people have the right to dominate, control, own, enslave, like, you're just complaining that they're fighting back, bud. That's it. Like, literally, the white power structure, they wanted to, yeah, of course they wanted to separate. Like, what's crazy is that you think that this is odd. Like, of course they wanted to separate. Like, white people kill these people. You know about lynching, right? Like, you know about slavery, right? Like, you know about these things, right? Like, you know that the prison population, like, America has 25% of the world's prison population. Why can't you? What? Why can't you? Each and every person that's created on this plane of reality is a divine being, living in divine energy, created by the God you pretend to worship. What would you do? What would you do if a bunch of purple people showed up and they were purple? What would you do if these purple people were saying, hey, purple people are the best people, non-purple people should work for us, and we'll run into their territory and kidnap and steal a bunch of purple people, right? Or steal a bunch of white people, because we're purple. We'll make them work in our factories and our farms. We'll make them do all the labor while we do nothing important, right? What would you do? Like, what would you do, bud? Would you fight back? Stop babbling in the chat. Stop babbling. You're babbling. What would you do if a bunch of purple people started picking up white people, forcing them into factories, forcing them onto plantations, forcing them onto farms? What would you do? Obviously, you would fight back. Obviously. As a divine being created by an omnipotent God who believes in your own sense. Yeah, you would want to organize, of course. So what's your complaint then? So if purple people come and start oppressing white people and those white people organize, that's fine. But if white people do the exact same thing to black people, that's not fine. And those black people start to organize, that's not fine. Like, that's babyish, bud. Like, that's baby brain. That's what that is. Like, the blacks literally made this happen. So the blacks forced the British to come to Africa, and the blacks walked onto the boats from the British and the French and the Spaniards, and the blacks brought themselves over to... Trem, your illiteracy runs extremely deep. Like, all of these statements that you're making, right? Like, you are hysterically wrong. Like, look at it. Look at it, chat. Look at it. Yeah. Let's move on. Let's move on. Like, it's that TMX loser from a long time ago. Wouldn't that be a thing? Ma who sold the slaves, Ma who created the man. Yeah. Like, slavery doesn't exist. You don't need to... we don't need to move on with that. Here's another good one. Canadians are going hungry while corporate profits soar and war rages on. I get tired because I know I'm not at times getting enough nutrients. This one comes from The Maple by Alex Kosh. Jan Reynolds, who lives in Guelph, Ontario, wasn't feeling well recently. We're going to just put you in timeout. Like, that's so dumb, dude. Like, you're extremely dumb. Who lives in Guelph, Ontario, wasn't feeling well recently. Her friend came over to check up on her and was surprised when she opened Reynolds' refrigerator. How come your fridge has only got a jug of water with cucumber slices in it and a little bit of lettuce? Reynolds recalled her friend asking as she looked at the fridge's sparse contents. Reynolds explained that she hadn't been able to go out and buy groceries, as supermarket costs had become nearly impossible for her to afford. Her friend offered to buy some food, but Reynolds was concerned that she didn't have enough money to pay her back. Reynolds moved to Guelph just as the COVID-19 pandemic hit more than 2 years ago. Last July, a report published by Rentals.ca found that the city had a 7th most expensive rents for one-bedroom apartments in Canada. Grappling with rising costs, Reynolds, who turned 70 this year, relies on old age security permits to survive. In July, OS payments are set to increase by 10%. For those over 75, meaning Reynolds will not benefit. It's a struggle to make ends meet, Reynolds told the Maple. She said she has found it difficult to find part-time work to supplement her income because of her age and because of the pandemic. She has no family who can provide support. Reynolds is vegan, but said the rising cost of food at grocery stores means that her veganism is no longer by choice. I can't afford to go buy eggs. I can't afford to buy cheese. I can't afford to go buy bread, she explained. I have $30 a week to spend on food. According to the most recent Consumer Price Index, Canadians paid 9.7% more for food purchased from grocery stores in April than they did during the same month last year. Some basic items increased by an even higher rate, with shoppers paying 12.2% more for bread than they did last year. Price for fresh vegetables, a core part of Reynolds' diet, increased by 8.2%. These rising costs means she is among the nearly 1 in 4 Canadians who are not eating properly because they don't have enough money to buy healthy food. OAS, along with other federal benefits, was indexed to increase at the rate of inflation. Still, meeting basic costs was tough even before soaring inflation hit. I get tired because I know I'm not at times getting enough nutrients, Reynolds explained, noting that she typically eats only 2 meals per day, one of which is a smoothie, for breakfast. At times, she has visited her local food bank, finding that she was only able to get highly processed food there. She is concerned that eating food with empty calories and little nutrient value will only exacerbate her health issues, driving up costs for other expenses, like medication. What is driving the rising costs? David MacDonald, a senior economist with the Canadian Centre for Policy Alternatives, told the Maple that a current round of inflation is being driven by 2 main factors. Input prices that impact the cost of goods, like gasoline and wheat, are on the rise in large part because of supply chain issues and the war in Ukraine. The conflict is showing no signs of abating, as Western countries, including Canada, continue to send billions of dollars to weapons in Ukraine, while also pressuring the Ukrainian government against seeking a peace deal with Russia, which is continuing its brutal invasion. Second, McDonald explained, corporate profits play a significant role in driving up consumer prices. As corporations increase profit margins and attempt to maintain them, they can also be a driver of inflation, particularly in industries where there isn't a lot of competition. But where there are monopolies or oligarchies, a concentration of corporate power, said McDonald. In these cases, McDonald explained, large companies wield pricing power not only to offset rising input costs, but also to pump up profit margins. This factor, he said, has clearly been happening in the most recent round of inflation. A third factor that economists commonly blame for inflation is rising workers' wages. However, McDonald said workers' wages are well behind inflation, about half of what inflation is. And so in that regard, we're actually seeing real wage losses due to how high inflation is and how low comparatively workers' wages are. In a recent report, McDonald compared changes in workers' wages and corporate profits across the past 6 economic recessions in Canada. As a result of the pandemic recession, corporations have enjoyed a 2.8% increase in net operating surpluses, while worker compensation fell by 0.8%. It's actually unprecedented to see the corporate sector capture so much economic growth coming out of a recession, said McDonald. Apart from groceries and gasoline, shelter costs have also increased. The most recent CPI update revealed that shelter costs rose by 7.4% year over year in April, the fastest pace since June 1983. The housing sector, said McDonald, is an area where the federal government has a significant amount of control. The federal government directly regulates the underwriting standards, the insurance for Canadians to get mortgages, and so there are a lot of regulatory powers that could be used there with no actual expense for the federal government, he explained. In a recent speech addressing inflation, Finance Minister Chrystia Freeland re-announced her government's plan to introduce a one-time $500 housing payment for low-income Canadians. For perspective, that would cover less than 1/3 of 1 month's average rent for a 1-bedroom apartment in Guelph. In terms of housing, one specific measure the government could take would be to increase the minimum amount that investors need for a down payment on a piece of property, said McDonald. This would disincentivize investors, reducing the amount of money fueling the housing crisis, thereby lowering costs. On the other hand, the surge in food and gasoline prices is being driven by international factors. Short of resolving the Ukrainian conflict, said McDonald, there is little that the international community can do to address this issue. Indeed, inflation is not confined to Canada, and is currently being seen in every major country in the world. Domestically, the Bank of Canada could significantly increase interest rates, but doing so risks triggering a recession, McDonald noted. In the short term, the feds could index benefit payments more nimbly so they keep pace with inflation rather than lagging behind it, and additionally create new one-time benefit payments for low-income households. Many provincial benefits that are not already indexed to inflation could also be adjusted, said McDonald. Concerns for the future. However, for those living on social supports, covering basic costs was difficult even before the inflation crisis. Meanwhile, even those with relatively secure incomes are nervous about rapidly rising day-to-day expenses. Alicia Bevan is a 26-year-old psychology graduate student living in Kitchener with her partner, who works full-time in the tech sector. She said that while she is not hurting financially, as much as those on lower incomes, she and her partner have recently had to budget much more carefully. I would never buy meat that wasn't on sale anymore, said Bevan. I always try to consider meatless options now. She is also opting to cook things like craft dinner more frequently than nutritious meals. Bevan is worried that things are only going to get worse. I think both our federal and provincial governments are extremely ill-prepared for the challenges our country is currently facing, and will face in the future with regard to the security of our food chain, she explained, adding that she will likely struggle to attain the quality of life that her parents were able to enjoy. I don't have the purchasing power that my parents had when they were my age, and my wages don't go as far in terms of purchasing power and quality of life, said Bevan. In particular, she noted, the climate and housing crisis are sources of tremendous stress when she thinks about the future. The most recent Youthful Cities Real Affordability Index update found that young people aged between 15 and 29 cannot afford housing in any of the cities, big or small, that they live in. In Kitchener, the average deficit in monthly expenses faced by young people was $842. It's not only young people who are grappling with soaring housing costs, however. Reynolds said she paid close attention to the recent provincial election in Ontario and noted that the major political parties talked a great deal about home ownership. What about those of us who can't afford a home? We're seniors and we rent, Reynolds explained, pointing out that Ontario Premier Doug Ford removed rent controls on new units shortly after taking power in 2018. Now you are trusting that the building owners won't be unscrupulous, she said. That's just not logical. I visited Guelph for a summer once. I had a bad time. Sorry to hear that, Methane. We need more unions for all workers. I agree. Have you seen Mick Lynch? Yes. Clobbering the UK media lately. He's the transit union leader. UK media generally, I've actually been quite impressed with, because while they have their share of corporate bot shitheads, they are also bringing on people who are actually saying and telling the truth about what's happening, right? Like, our media is basically just keeping people out, right? Like, you essentially end up with a fascist, a far-right lunatic, and then a liberal. And that's your whole panel. And whereas the UK media is basically like, no, here's the communist. Here's the communist. Listen to the communist, right? And they're not pretending otherwise. Like, they still have the same problems we have in terms of who has the power. But at least they're not just silencing and shunting aside the actual communists, right? And the people on the left of the conversation. Like, I literally saw a guy saying on national television in the UK, he was addressing the nation and just saying, how much longer are you going to put up with this? How much longer until you're going to stay on your knees? How much longer until you actually stand up and go on strike like these guys did, right? You going to see that in America? You're going to see that in Canada? No. For obvious reasons. And if you guys don't know who Mick Lynch is, look him up. Look him up. He's been taking these guys to task. Imagine when you blame slavery on the story. Yeah. Hey everyone, I'm good. Hey Adam, how you doing, bud? Got a question about Turkey. Yep. They want to be in... Because Turkey's in a tough situation, man. That's all it is. And I saw this. I actually have it here. Yeah. Turkey agrees to back Finland and Sweden's bid to join alliance. But they also want to be part of BRICS, right? Like, it comes down to a very simple thing for these guys, man. Of course they want to play all sides. Like, of course they want to play all sides. Look at them. It doesn't take a big, heavy analysis to put this together, man. Look at where these guys are, right? Like, they're in... This is the path into Europe, right? Like, if China wants to get a path into Europe by land on the Belt and Road Initiative without going through Russia, right? Which, obviously, there's pretty big conflict going on the Russian border right now. Obviously, the Americans and the Europeans are trying to do everything they can, more the Americans, obviously, to cut any kind of rail path in to ensure that the Belt and Road Initiative is stymied. So that essentially leaves Turkey as the only kind of go-between. But Turkey can't just turn around and say, hey, fuck you, Europe, fuck you, America. I'm going with I forgot what that's, the BRICS. I'm going with the BRICS, right? Like, the Americans are literally engaging in, like, CIA-style coup warfare right here. That's the border. They've been blowing up Iraq for 20 years. That's the border, right? Iran is essentially a far-right theocracy, right? But is stable, right? And this is the path from Tehran into Ankara, right? That's the path the rail is taking, right? Israel's right there, Lebanon's right there. So they've got a fucking enormous refugee crisis on their border, right? That's blowing everything up, with the Americans clearly saying, very obviously and overtly, yeah, we'll fucking blow you up. We're fine with that. We don't even need to make up an excuse anymore, right? We could just walk into Libya and blow it up, right? We could just walk into Iraq and blow it up. Oh, he's got weapons. He's got a gun. Right? That's basically what they did in Iraq. They basically just shouted, hey, he's got a gun! And just blew him up. Right? And then they walked over and they, like, threw a gun on him. Like, that's what happened. And they're sitting there being like, yeah, they could do that. Right? And if America did that to Turkey, Europe would go, like they did with Iraq. They're just, well... And that's it. Like, that's all that'll happen. And so Turkey can't just be like, BRICS, BRICS, BRICS. Because it sees what's happening in Ukraine. Like, it sees what's going on around here. It knows the score. And so it's trying as hard as it can to appease all parties. Because Turkey's got to be sitting there being like, yep, this is the next major conflict. Like, where's the next major conflict going to happen in the world? Right? Major control of the Black Sea, huge control into Europe, right? A major, major, major corridor, right? Not only from the Middle East, but also going around the Black Sea into Russia, right? Turkey has huge military importance, huge geostrategical importance. Turkey's doing everything it can to make sure that, like, and I am more or less of the opinion that it's finally going, okay, sure, we'll back this so that you guys can go. You guys are gonna leave me alone though, right? Like, I'm still working on this side, right? Because, like, for real, like, if you look at Turkey here. Right? You look at Turkey just from this side, and you're like, oh yeah, like, it should absolutely be working to try to get as many relations going on. It should have good relations with Saudi Arabia and Iran, right? Like, it should be doing everything it can to try to smooth relationships out, try to get connected to China, all this kind of stuff. Well, here's the other side, right? Oh yeah, it should be doing everything it can to try and get good relations with him, try to get connected into Germany, right? Like, try to get all this kind of... We need to spread democracy across the world. If we don't get that, the leaders of Turkey have been too long with the. You guys want to join? You guys, I think it's a bad idea, but you guys want to join NATO? Okay. Yeah, okay. Well, that's Turkey. I feel my heart goes to Turkey, man. Like, they're in a tough spot. They're in a real tough spot. Like, if shit starts to go sideways and, like, it really turns into, like, jackboots and shit, Turkey's in a tough spot. So, yeah. They're doing everything they can to try to appease all parties, and it's not going to work. Like, I hope it works. Like, I sincerely hope. Like, for fuck's sake, dude, look at Istanbul. Like, look at this. Like, this little tiny piece of land right through here. Bink. This is also, like, a corridor into the Black Sea. Like, Istanbul. Like, Jesus fucking Christ. So these guys are like, I hope it works out for them. I don't want them to get bombed. I hope the Turkey's okay. I worry about Turkey. And like, you can critique Turkey for its leadership and all that kind of shit. Like, I'm not defending the I forget his name offhand, but like he's not the greatest man that ever lived, obviously. But like he's clearly made decisions based on how fucked up everything is. Like, Turkey must be stable. That it cannot destabilize. And so it's just like Iran has become like a right-wing theocracy, Turkey has gone real far right-wing, hard-handed, right? Because it's had to. Doesn't have a choice. Yeah, when criticizing modern-day wage slavery, you get, yeah, but who created the demand? Apparently this doesn't apply to old-age chattel slavery, though. Who created the demand? The fucking Europe. Like, European, like, who do you think they were shipping all that cotton to? NATO inflation, yeah. Well, and that's what's funny, actually. Like, it's inflation, it's across the whole planet. Oh my god, inflation, it's a global phenomenon. It's a global phenomenon. Current rate of inflation in China. It's a global phenomenon. Guys, it's global. It's a global phenomenon. Everybody is experiencing it globally. Like, globally, it's totally happening. Totally happening. The average inflation rate was 5.0. It's global. Oh, it's global. Totally global. Global as long as you think the international community is Canada, the United States, Europe, and Australia. As long as you think that the world population, right, the international community is the United States, Canada, Europe, and Australia. When the world's richest gain a collective $5 trillion over a year and everyone else can't buy food, gee, I wonder where the problem might be. Yeah. That's why you see corporations directly sow profit, they last hurrah before the end. Yeah, but that's exactly it, Grinning, right? It's extraction and abandonment. They want to extract as much money as they possibly can and as much wealth as they can so they can have it, so that when the whole thing goes down, they'll have it and you won't. Yeah, don't get me started on Doug Ford. A new Turkish section was just accepted at the International Committee of the Fourth International. This is what I'm saying, man. Like, Turkey is going to be in a really tough spot should an actual, honest-to-God war break out between China and the United States. Like, it is going to find itself in a tough spot. Because very much like how the Ukraine crisis was a drawing of a line in the sand, right? Where Russia was also trying to do this, right? Russia was also trying to be like, okay, I can work with Europe and I can be part of like the international community there. They were part of the G8, right? They were trying to get involved. They were applying to NATO, like all this kind of stuff. Well, they've also got very close relations with China. They're very friendly, right? Everything's going well between Russia and China, right? And so, from the Western perspective, they're on both sides. Like, my perspective is that, yeah, of course Russia's trying to have good relations with Europe and China. They're both on their border, right? Of course it's trying to, like, that's just good basic politics, right? Yeah, I would like for there to be trade and things to go well on both sides, right? But from the American perspective, the white supremacist perspective, no. You're either with us or against us. If you're not going to fight against China, the yellow commie threat, if you're not going to fight against the yellow commie threat, then you're an enemy. You're an enemy of the Holy Empire, right? Like, that's kind of dumb bullshit. And so that forces a line in the sand, and the Ukraine war, or the Donbass war, really draws a line in the sand. And Russia is now not part of the community anymore. We've got, Russia defaults on foreign debt for the first time since 1918. Literally just like, we're not paying that debt. Fuck you. Right? Like, this is a line in the sand that is being drawn for sure. The same thing is going to happen to Turkey. Turkey is going to be forced into a situation, right, where it's going to have to pick. And it's going to be a line in the sand and it's going to be drawn. And do I know how that's going to be configured? Do I know where that's going to come about? No. But it is going to have to pick. And we'll see. We'll see. I don't know how to answer that question. I wouldn't want to be in that position to have to answer the question of which way am I going to jump. If I were giving advice, like if I was an advisor to the leadership at the time when all of this shit was coming down, I would be saying lean towards China. That's what I would be saying. China is stable. You can critique them all you want, but they're stable. They have a manufacturing base. They're a rising power in a big and serious way, while America is on a pretty major decline. Also, I think that Saudi Arabia and Iran are stronger trading partners than places like Bulgaria, Greece, Romania, right? And so I think I would be saying lean towards China, but we'll see how it all works out for Turkey. Very, very nervous about Turkey. Why would Russia allow Turkey BRICS membership after it just approved NATO to double its border along Russia's border? Yeah, like this is exactly what I'm talking about, Adam. Like and I think the answer is that Russia respects Turkey's position more than the United States respects Turkey's position. I think that that's what it really comes down to. That when Russia is doing politics with Turkey, it understands the score more than the United States does. Like the United States really does have a like our way or the highway. You do this kind of shit. You do what we say. If you don't, there's going to be problems kind of attitude. Whereas, and I think Russia looks at that and knows that that's happening to Turkey and everywhere, because that's what the United States does to everybody, and understands it, right? And so when Turkey does something, it's not like Russia sits there and goes, I can't believe that Turkey did this to us. What a slap in the face. I can't ever do business with these guys ever again. I think that Russia knows the score. And that's why I don't like, while I think Russia's not a fan of it, I don't think it sours relationships, right? Because Turkey does things for Russia. Like Turkey is accommodating to the degree that it can be, right? Just like it's I just think that Russia is more grown up when it's doing politics on the world stage. And if you know, like this big fucking clumsy oaf with a big giant stick, you get it. Like you get it, right? So it's just politicking, and it's just politicking. But there is going to be a moment. Like there is going to be a moment where Russia is going to say to Turkey, and China is going to say to Turkey, and the United States is going to say to Turkey, what side are you on? What side are you on? And we know, right? Like we know what it's all about. Like we know. So I don't envy their position. And I don't think that Russia or China envy their position either, right? Which is why I think Turkey would be wise to swing over to China and Russia's side, because I think China and Russia understand Turkey's position more than the Americans do. That the Americans literally, like, as far as they're concerned, Turkey is just a servile state, a vassal. That's as far as it goes for the Americans, right? Whereas I think Turkey is going to find in Russia and China more reasonable, negotiative, understanding nations that are going to maybe not agree with every decision they make, maybe not like every decision they make, but at least understand the predicament that Turkey finds itself in. Yeah, I think that's more or less the truth of it. But the truth is, like, there is absolutely no way that, and this is what I'm talking about with the line in the sand, right? That while while Turkey is in NATO, they'll never join BRICS. And if they join BRICS, they'd be out of NATO in a second. Like that's the drawing of the line in the sand for sure. Geopolitics forces countries to be unprincipled in many international dealings. Yeah, and it is like, well, especially when you've got a monster tromping around, right? Like we wish we lived in a world where people could like negotiate peaceably and come to good arrangements and all this kind of stuff, and like a little bit of modest scheming and all this kind of stuff. But like the United States is basically like, we can literally just like drop in on you and take your shit over today. And how do we know? Because they do it. Like all the time. Like all the time. Like if the United States really wanted to, they could drop a bunch of choppers on Istanbul, like where the fucking parliament building is in Istanbul, and just take it over and just be like, we own it now. What are you gonna do? And like and everybody knows it, right? Like everybody knows it. Thousands took part in peaceful Municher demonstrations and protests at the G7 meeting. Police attacked and arrested protesters as they were leaving. Yeah, of course. Absolutely. China going to do something with Taiwan maybe next year. I know exactly what China wants to do with Taiwan. They want to get all, they're going to shoot out all their boats from Xiamen and Fuzhou, right? They're going to surround Taiwan, all their boats, right? Get a bunch of boats. Make sure that they're going to blockade this, so Americans can't get through here, right? Because that's what the Americans keep doing. Right? The Americans keep like floating their boats through, right? So they want to surround it, create a blockade. That'll be huge international news. And then they just want to shoot like a nice little diplomatic thing over to Taipei, right? Land at Taipei, go to the National Palace, right? They want to do a tour of the National Palace, right? The traditional seat of power. And then they're going to sign a little document. And that document is going to say that Taiwan is a province of China. That's what the Chinese want. They don't want to go in there big guns and shoot in places. They don't want to do any of that. They want it to be very, very like graceful, elegant, peaceful, right? And of course, America doesn't want that shit to happen. So the question will be when the Chinese start to actually move forward on this. And this is the thing, is that you're saying maybe by next year. I think maybe in like 20 years. Like the Chinese are not they don't feel they have to move on this. Like it's not like the Americans have taken over Taiwan. It's not like the Americans are taking over Taiwan in big and serious ways. They're not putting a military base there. There's some negotiations that happen in Taiwan, but the Taiwanese people themselves are not like rah-rah America, right? The Taiwanese people themselves are more or less of the opinion that what's happening now is fine, right? That like we are kind of left alone by China, we're kind of left alone by America, we are in a way independent. That I think if it actually came down to it for the Taiwanese people, they would want to declare their independence, which I think that is an option for them, that they could declare their independence. And it would be, that would be messy as shit for them, I think. A lot messier. But what's happening now, essentially, is that they're still amidst a war that never ended. Right? The war never really ended. There was no declaration of end to the war. That it really was just the Chinese and the Americans ruddering up to one another, and they were never able to resolve it. And Taiwan is the kind of final flag post of that war, of Mao's war. And I think the Chinese are more patient. I think that they are really willing to wait until the Americans are weaker than this, which they can get and they will get. And I think they're also waiting for their own technological advantages to kick in, right? We've got documents coming out of American places like the Pentagon and the Rand Corporation saying that the Chinese can get a technological advantage. And once the Chinese have that technological advantage, then they are essentially unassailable, right? So a surrounding of Taiwan, a diplomatic entourage, right? So it's not an invasion. And a simple, like, here we are in the Chinese province of Taiwan. Yes, welcome to the Chinese province of Taiwan, right? It'll have that kind of look about it. And I think that's what they want. And I think if they're patient enough, which they definitely are, they'll get it. And the question is basically, will the Americans do something reckless? And the answer to that is probably yes. So, we'll see. I've yet to see a homeless person in any of the China Walks videos. I think there's homeless people everywhere. China just don't allow them to sleep in cities. Tinker, China actually has a policy here where if you're homeless, like they literally build empty cities. Like they literally build empty cities. If you're homeless, they literally take you to one of these places. Like, and I haven't seen anything that convinces me the opposite is true. So like, they've got all these empty properties. They've built these empty cities. You can watch the Vice documentaries on them. And if they find out that you're homeless, they take you to a home. And so the reason why there's no homeless in the cities is because they have apartments and they give them apartments. I keep seeing strange videos about China in my YouTube feed later. Things like Chinese people must bow down to conduct business at any service counters. It shows everyone kneeling at the DMVs. I mean, who knows what's culturally normal, right? Like, no. That's not in the Vice documentary. Sorry, Ligandes. Just the empty, like, I don't know why you would have homeless people if you had like empty cities. Like, why would you do that? That would be crazy to me. Like, that would be so, like, that'd be the American way of doing things. Have you seen Hakim's video on Iraq becoming an energy superpower through socialism? I have not. I should take a look at it. Thanks for the pitch. Hakim does good work. I know that earlier I was sort of shitting on him, but like, he does really good work and is very informative. Very like, and uses really his sourcing is really strong, like really strong. So definitely somebody worth paying attention to. And to your point, Methane, I mean, like, so what if they do? You know, that's my point. Like, so what if they do? Like, we do all kinds of weird cultural shit that the rest of the world goes, what? Oh, okay. Like, there's always going to be cultural differences. There's always going to be weird little things that like we do very odd, strange things that we consider completely normal, whereas other nations and other places are like, we do exactly the opposite of this, or something different entirely, and so if you're getting a video of like, look at how wacky it is here in China. Like, I just am like, yeah, of course. It's wacky everywhere, bud. So are Finland and Sweden joining NATO now? For sure. This kind of thing is sort of indicating that is going to be the case. Right? I think it's a huge mistake for Finland and Sweden. I think it's a massive error for them. It is obviously going to be interpreted as an escalation. But it is like paving the way, right? So we'll see. I've also seen some pretty effective polling that shows that the people of Finland themselves and the people of Sweden themselves are actually down for this. So it's just folly, if you ask me. It's just folly. It's just like the Ukraine war really scared them, and now they're looking for shelter, and the only place that they think they can find shelter is NATO, because NATO's close, and I just don't think they're thinking about it. I think the monkeys have taken over, like the monkey mind has taken over, And they're just like, fight or flight. Oh, let's run into the arms of NATO, right? I just don't... And of course, that's bad news for them because it's going to be interpreted as an escalation from Russia, right? Again, another line drawn in the sand, right? Well, technically the line is like this because Belarus... Poor Belarus. Belarus is going to get fucked with pretty hard soon, I'm sure of it. China has won 20 million dead iPhones, exactly. There's no tipping in China, not like the USA. We just got rid of tipping at my establishment. Yep. Turkey is holding it up. No, Turkey is actually moving forward with it now. They have been holding it up, but they just pushed forward. We were doing a bit of speculation earlier about why the flip over. Finland condemns, over the past weeks, Turkey has raised its concern over the threats of terrorism. In the memorandum, the Nordics, blah, 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 blah. Turkey have signed a memorandum that addresses Turkey's concerns, including around arms exports in the fight against terrorism. So what it looks like is that Turkey used this as an opportunity to get some concessions and get some agreements on the table for itself, given its position, in order to allow Finland and Sweden to move forward with, which Russia is going to respect. I really do think so. Russia's not going to be happy about it, obviously, but Russia's going to respect it. People in my town will lose their minds if Finland gets invaded. The city will be awash in Finnish flags. Yeah. I'd be very surprised, dude. This conflict here is taking everything Russia has, right? It's and Russia is definitely winning. They're definitely winning. At this point, it is just we're kind of holding our breath and waiting for the writ to drop. What was that poll you thought it was interesting? Or are you talking about the... I don't want to dig it up, bud. Engineer in Exile. Good to see you, bud. Great song. Which song are you talking about, bud? Hope you're here to participate. Got a lot of new people in the chat today, man. Got a lot of new people in the chat today. That was nice. Honestly, even when the fascist was here. Which, I just put him in timeout. Did I ban him on accident? Is that what happened? Because I put user in timeout. That's what I hit, right? Oh, well. Even talking to that fascist was fun. Fascists, man. What a bunch of weirdos. After grim housing affordability. Yeah, he probably just left. You're right, looking at these. After grim housing affordability report, critics look to Doug Ford's government for a plan. Sorry, Eric, but I don't think I know what you mean. Yeah, 58% of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck after inflation spike, including 30% of those earning $25,000 or more, including those. Yeah, Doug Ford, that's exactly what I said, Tinker. I was just yeah, right, Doug Ford for a plan, right? Doug Ford's plan is very simple. We're going to charge the taxpayer a bunch of money to build housing that we're going to give to rich people. That's the whole plan, from start to finish. I keep seeing it over and over again. Ignore the fact that huge segments are owned of the housing market are owned by the investor class. Ignore all of that. No, the problem is that we just need to build more housing. That's all it is. Horgan stepping down in British Columbia. Worth bringing up. Kind of surprising to see. Although, when is the British Columbia election? Hold on. That might not be that surprising. When is the next BC provincial election? There we are. Is it? Oh yeah, okay. No. This is normal. Horgan's stepping down, giving his party enough time to find a new leader, giving them enough time to promote something. He served 2 terms. He's an old guy. And he's been fighting cancer. There you go, Watson. Right? So I don't think this is going to hurt the NDP. And if anything, it could reinvigorate the party. Right? That's another thing that does happen. Sometimes leaders step down and suddenly, like that happened with Kenny. Right? Kenny stepped down and suddenly the Conservatives shot up in the polls. Everybody was like, yeah! So here's Horgan. Same kind of thing will probably happen. And it can also be like a real like rallying moment of just like all the NDPers get together and are like, John Horgan, from sea to shining sea. Oh yeah, Declassified UK did a good. I'm not going to read this whole thing. Obviously, it's huge. They have a good interview here with Jeremy Corbyn. Jeremy Corbyn was like completely assassinated politically, dude. They like totally ganked this guy. Like, if you want to see any evidence whatsoever that the Western system of democracy, Westminster politics has been completely bought and is corrupt on all sides, you just need to take a look at Jeremy Corbyn. Like, just a complete assassination. The anti-Semite smears that they tried to put towards Corbyn, or that they successfully put towards Corbyn, frankly, like, just absolutely unbelievable bullshit. Anyway. Hope you guys are all doing well out there. We got 15 minutes on the clock. This is a good one. Because, like, one of the things that I have been really going after the NDP about is that they refuse to actually name who the... they refuse to actually name the name of the villain, right? They refuse to actually say the word capitalism. They refuse to actually say what the problem actually is, right? Which basically turns them into liberal reformists, essentially. And I've been having conversations with NDP types, and the stuff that they're saying is stupid. They're saying stupid shit. Like, oh, we don't want to alienate the moderates that don't exist. That sounds like a good way to lose an election. As they lose election after election after election. Like, I don't know why a party of losers who keep losing elections and just lost a very significantly lost an election. Like this election that they just lost was beyond a loss. It was an embarrassment. A critical failure from any perspective that you can look at it. But if you talk to NDPers, they think that they've got all the answers and they're the hot shit. Right? They're not taking a moment to reflect. They're not asking themselves serious questions. They're not trying to figure out what went wrong. They're not doing any of that, right? I'll be very, very curious to see what kind of nonsense comes out of any kind of... Yeah, but this election in particular, Watson, like, before when they were ruddering themselves up against liberals, it makes a type of sense, right? Like, they themselves are essentially a liberal reformist party, so why bother? Right? Like, why bother jumping ship from a liberal reformist party into another liberal reformist party? Like, it seems pointless to do. But now the populace gave the Conservatives a go, elected the worst premier the province has ever seen by a wide margin, right? Doug Ford has not only shown that he is a callous, psychotic grifter, he's also shown that he is desperately incompetent. And one of the first acts that he did in his second term was appoint his own nephew to be like the Minister of Cultural Affairs or whatever, in the first act of open nepotism in a premier has ever done in the province. Like, and not only were the NDP incapable of defeating Doug Ford, the worst premier in the history of the province, they lost power. They lost power. And you can't even blame it on vote splitting coming from the Liberals, because the Liberals lost power too. The Conservatives gained seats. It's pathetic. It's a pathetic embarrassment of a display. And when you go and you actually talk to the NDPers about the embarrassing loss, they're all walking around still full of themselves and hot shit. They all think that we don't need to change anything. Keep losing election, losers. Keep losing elections. And if you tell them, like, I'm just going to vote for communists, right? I'm just going to go vote for somebody who is actually espousing the principles that I believe in. They say, well, then you'll never win. And I said, well, neither are you, you dummies. You're not winning. Like, that's probably the most shocking part about talking to the NDP types right now, is that they don't seem to get what's happening to them. And they don't seem to get why they can't appeal to the country and the province. They genuinely don't seem to understand that the reason why we're not voting NDP is because they're just another neoliberal shill party, and we know it. When we look at them, we think, oh, it's another one. And that's it. Like, sure, it's painted itself orange. Sure, it's going like a little tiny bit further in terms of its incremental reformism, right? Sure, it's making like the tiny little promises that a liberal liberal reformist party makes, right? But like, it's not, we don't live in 1974 anymore, right? This isn't even like 1986, right? Like, the ship, it's like we're on the Titanic. The ass end of the Titanic is up in the air, and these NDPers are basically just saying, what we need is just we just need a couple of more water wings. More water wings. More water wings. No one gives a fuck. Like, no one's going to listen to that. And in fact, everyone's going to look at them and be like, what the fuck are you talking about? And at least, like, Doug Ford is standing up going, the people who are responsible for this ship sinking are bad, and what we need to do is stop the ship sinking. The NDP types no longer represent the working class in any form. Their base is simply disconnected from the working class, and that's why they don't want to push away the moderates. Yeah, that was a very shocking conversation that I had. Like, there is no moderates anymore. There's no moderates. Like, if I pick up a gun and point it at someone and say, I'm going to shoot that person, what's the moderate position? Like, there is no moderate position. But the NDP are walking around pretending like there's a moderate position. Pretending like they can be moderate. And it's embarrassing. It's embarrassing to watch. And what's even more embarrassing is that you only need to look at their own history to see how successful the rhetoric of actual change is. Look at Tommy Douglas. Like, when Tommy Douglas was pushing for universal health care, this batch of NDPers would say, oh, you're alienating people. Right? You're alienating people. That's what they would be saying today. It's an embarrassment. And I hope the party collapses. I hope it goes away forever. Like, honestly, like, why do we have this party? What's the point of it? I don't really get the point of the NDP anymore. Like, what are they for? They should just merge with the Liberals. Just be done with it. Right? Get the fuck out of here. What are you even doing? Well, what's going to start happening is that parties like the PPC are going to start getting seats. Right? Like, we elected communists not that long ago. We can elect another communist. Right? The political system is increasingly toxic, said Rima Burns-McGowan. That's why McGowan, who represented the NDP for Beach Yorks in the Ontario legislature until June 2nd, chose not to run again. Progressive parties like the NDP are not immune to toxicity, she told The Breach. If I stayed, it would have been giving up the very reason why I got into politics in the first place. To represent people who are marginalized in society, who need their voices and interests to be pulled into the mainstream, and at least to be seen. The party, she said, failed to take into account the unique challenges black people face in politics. She pointed to former NDP MPP and fellow Black Caucus member Kevin Yard, who faced a nomination challenge in the lead-up to the election earlier this month and was ousted. It's rare for incumbents to face challenges, and Yard told a reporter that he had not been informed that there was a challenger until after the deadline for signing up new members. He subsequently quit the NDP to sit as an independent for the remainder of his term. The move attracted criticism from several other members of the party's Black Caucus. The absence of support from the party is glaring. I mean, I gotta tell you though, like, look how they're trying to turn it into a race issue instead of, like, the NDP aren't standing up against capitalism. They're not standing up against the, like, the problems the party faced in the 2022 elections are nothing new. It's the same thing that's been going wrong with the party for a long time now. He's an Ottawa-based NDP organizer who sits on the Electoral District Association. Party strategists have been banking on an electoral landscape similar to what happened in provinces west of Ontario, where the provincial Liberal Party collapses and the NDP becomes the only serious option for center-left voters. That hasn't occurred. Yeah, people just stayed home because there's no such thing as a center-left voter anymore. It doesn't exist. You're either on the side of the oligarchy or you're not. Like, catch up. In fact, the Ontario Liberals received slightly more votes than the NDP did in the most recent election, although it was spread too thin to make a difference in seat count. Just a total embarrassment. The NDP has pursued a strategy outlined by journalist Susan Delacourt in her book Shopping for Votes, which outlined how modern electoral politics increasingly treat voters as consumers who are investing in a brand, as if they're buying a pair of shoes, with policies and messaging tailor-made to certain voting demographics through focus group testing. If you're winning elections in that way, does it matter? I'm not sure it does. I don't want to have an Ontario NDP government that's just another iteration of what we see in BC and Alberta, Crowder said. He said the party's platform has improved from when he ran as a candidate in 2014, when the NDP ran on an austere platform and called for the establishment of a Ministry of Savings. Like, this, listen to this dumb bullshit. Like, listen to this dumb, moronic, childish bullshit. Ministry of Savings? Get fucking real. Grow up. Like, unbelievably childish. The Ontario NDP's turn to the economic right foreshadowed the following year's federal election. Yeah, Thomas Mulcair's federal NDP was leading in the poll. He promised balanced budget, was subsequently trounced. Oh shit. It's almost as though if you start talking about capitulating financial power to the oligarchy, we don't like that. Who fucking knew? These baby brains, man. In 2022, the Ontario NDP offered a bolder policy agenda, including a promise to raise Ontario Disability Support Program benefits and abolish private long-term care. But those policies were presented more of a grab bag of proposals and not part as a cohesive vision for the province. They're not saying the problem is capitalism. They're simply not saying that the problem is capitalism. I don't feel like we're trying to articulate a sort of totalistic version for what Ontario should be. We were trying out tested messages that were supposed to be effective according to the research the party had done. Poisoning the grassroots. ignoring the majority. If the party was unable to get its voters to show up at the polls, at least part of that was due to lack of energy among its most dedicated grassroots supporters. Some of those supporters have been raising their voices in the wake of a second Ford majority. Jessa McLean, the president of the York Simcoe NDP Riding Association federally and provincially, invited others to air their frustrations on Twitter in the wake of the party's defeat. From an insider's perspective, what went wrong is just the general disdain and marginalization of the grassroots, who we inevitably rely on to do the work for elections, she said, criticizing the authoritarian rule of Balagas, as well as party executive director Lucy Watson. See, if you are a capitalist party, then you instantly have disdain for the workers and the grassroots because you're capitalists, right? You can't simultaneously reach out and be a workers' party while you hold disdain for workers. Like, a longtime party fixer and a key player in Manitoba NDP governments that implemented neoliberal economic policies, Belagras attracted the ire of party activists early on. In 2018, he was suspended for allegedly ignoring sexual harassment complaints in his Manitoba Chief of Staff role, but then was reinstated in time for the 2018 Ontario election. He was just one of the candidates who was effectively pushed out of the party. Kevin Yard, rather. Party-backed candidates were imposed in a number of ridings, demotivating party activists. Doesn't this just sound like corporate bullshit? How many times have I worked in a corporate environment where I've been working with someone who's a competent, brilliant leader, who I build a rapport with, who I think to myself, I'd like this guy to be my leader. And what do? They just bring in some asshole I've never met who starts swinging his dick around and probably fires a guy like this. Right? So it sounds to me like the NDP have a corporate mindset of corporate domination and control, while alienating the very people who are attempting to do the work. It wasn't just mismanagement, it was malicious. Some party activists didn't even vote NDP this time around. The party's strategy of appealing to a temporarily disaffected liberal and conservative voters ignores what McLean sees as a more robust strategy. We haven't even gone after the 60% of people who don't vote. Because to do so, you'd have to actually give name to their issues, which is that capitalism is the crisis. And saying anything less than that makes you a shill for oligarchs. Flat out. That's the bar. Like, I don't know why this has become so difficult to understand. If you do not say capitalism is the crisis, you are not a political party worth voting for. And anyone who tells me otherwise is just trying to shut me up. Capitalism is the crisis. Say it or I don't believe you. And I'm not interested in what you have to say. At all. 0%. That's why nobody showed up to vote for these losers. Ian Borsuk, who's the president of the NDP's Hamilton Centre, has been involved in the provincial party as a volunteer. He characterizes the experience within the party over the past few years as cautious optimism along with some pretty deflating pessimism. The overwhelming feeling and real perspective I've had is that despite having such a great platform in a lot of ways, there just really wasn't a comprehensive plan or idea of how to communicate that to the base in a way that actually motivated volunteers. Because you're working on behalf of the system that's destroying us, pretending like you're going to do piecemeal reformism. Capitalism is the crisis. These next 4 years are going to be brutal. It's going to be a complete disaster for environmental issues, for social issues, for economic issues, and people are mad about that. It really seems there's a kind of central base of the party that more or less controls everything and seems to have very different priorities than the folks on the ground who need the ONDP to win, unfortunately. Yeah, because they're controlled dissent. That's why the NDP exist and are permitted to exist. But the problems of centralized control, difficulty communicating progressive platforms, and demobilized grassroots suggest the problems run deeper than the current leadership. I think it goes well beyond just Andrea. Yeah. Sounds to me like the NDP are a corporate oligarchic party. Why vote for them? John, you're wrong. Capitalism is the best system ever. This is why we need anarcho-capitalism, so that I can sell and my children not feed because it's the coercion. Yeah, babies are my priority. Yeah. All right, guys, we've reached it. We've done the end. Dear NDP, say these words. Capitalism is the crisis. If you don't say it, we don't trust you. Simple as that. Capitalism is the crisis. All right, guys. Like, share, subscribe. Donate a little bit to my Patreon. Think about giving me some money. Hope you're all doing well out there. Always remember, each and every one of you is a quantum being walking around in quantum energy. The billionaire class is spending hundreds of billions of dollars in order to convince you something else is going on. Revolt. Rebel. Repent. Good luck. We're going to need it.